Bonjour tout le monde. Welcome to Invest Ottawa and Bayview Yards. For those who might not have had the opportunity to meet me just yet, my name is Sonia Shorey. I have the privilege of serving as the interim president and CEO of Invest Ottawa, Bayview Yards, and AreaX.O. Welcome. We are so grateful you have taken the time to join us. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that the land on which we gather is the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people. We are very grateful for the opportunity to be present in this territory and come together as a community. Further, I want to respect and affirm the inherent and treaty rights of all Indigenous peoples across this land. We recognize the contribution of Métis, Inuit, and all Indigenous peoples have and continue to make, both in shaping and strengthening this community and our country as a whole. International Women's Month is truly all about community. Our goal is to maximize the collective impact of current and aspiring women leaders from every walk of life, here at home and around the world. Now in our 6th year, International Women's Month is building a community that is truly committed to inspiring, equipping, and empowering women leaders in every professional field, from tech and entrepreneurship to innovation, Main Street business, academia, government, and nonprofits. I always say it is not simply a series of events or campaigns. It's a powerful driver for long-term sustainable change for and with our community and the world. And over the course of March, this next 31 days, we've brought our strengths to bear as a community to pave the way for women to achieve impact on our economy and society. We have partnered with dozens of local, regional, national, and global partners who come together to realize this vision. This, of course, includes our co-host IBM. Very special shout out to my good friend Anita Baines, who has been so pivotal in championing and visioning today. Thank you for your leadership always. We're honored to collaborate with you and bring this event to bear together with our title sponsor for International Women's Month, BDC Capital's Thrive Venture Fund. We're also very grateful to the government partners that help Invest Ottawa do exactly what it does every single day, fuel economic development, job creation, and growth in our community. So thank you to the City of Ottawa, to the Province of Ontario, and the Government of Canada, including FedDev Ontario, for their unwavering support of the community we serve. We know that many folks from our government partners are here today, both with us in the room and online. Thank you so much for being a part of this journey. We know that we have a long way to go, but we also are encouraged by the progress we're making together. It will take folks working together as a unified force to drive change, and this is at the heart of today's event, Women Leading in AI. So welcome to today's event. We're thrilled to have so many leaders, entrepreneurs, fellow allies, investors, thought leaders from our region, across the country, today, online and in person. Today is really about inspiration and actionable insight from true role models who translate vision into action and impact on all of these levels. Our speakers are leading powerful initiatives, companies, and investments that are making a difference. They're Canadian AI leaders who have worked hard to already embed AI into their client experience, internal business operations, and ensure that these technologies and innovations are built with governance that is vital to the success of AI-based business, transformative initiatives, and our economy as a whole. You will hear about the opportunities and challenges they've encountered throughout their work, through their rollouts, and the real-world needs that have guided and continue to guide their decisions and their impact. And they will discuss bleeding-edge elements of AI with the future in mind. We need more women in STEM. This is something I am incredibly passionate about, and the leaders here today are helping to build that pipeline today and tomorrow. Just a few statistics to underpin the imperative that we face on this front. Women constitute approximately 27% of the technology workforce, and while this reflects a modest increase over previous years, and there is a gradual trend, there's an executive gap, and the progress is simply not fast enough. The sector has witnessed a significant underrepresentation in leadership roles, with women holding less than 20% of leadership and executive roles in technology, highlighting the challenge that women face in terms of climbing the corporate ladder. Women of color face even greater obstacles, representing only 18% of entry-level positions in tech and experiencing higher rates of discrimination and less optimism about career prospects. There, of course, is hope, and the hope is in this room today and in the influence and the impact that you will achieve on so many who experience today and the roles that you play going forward. And I'm very encouraged by this statistic, which I found just last evening. For girls who code, the alumni choose computer science majors at 7 times the annual average rate. So if we can inspire that next generation even earlier, we will build a stronger pipeline of AI and technology leaders that this world needs even faster. So thank you for bringing that vision to bear today. A few housekeeping notes before I introduce our first esteemed keynote speaker. For most sessions, we will be taking audience questions during the last 10 minutes. For those folks here at Bayview, we have a roaming mic that will come to you. For those special guests we have online, we welcome your questions in the chat, and we'll be watching for them on the YouTube live stream. We will be recording our entire event today. This is intended to help as many people as possible benefit from the content you are contributing to. Today's event is free because we want to reduce barriers and make it as accessible as possible. We, of course, will be taking some snapshots. I think you've seen our amazing photographer roaming here today, as well as our videography team, so please smile for the camera. Be sure to share your experience on social using the hashtag IWM2024. And we look forward to sharing today's event broadly. So please, when you see it come out across social media, we encourage you to share it broadly with your networks as well. Our event survey will pop up on the screens behind me throughout the day, as well as in your inbox following the event. We need your feedback to continue to make these events even more impactful for you and others going forward. I will note that we have washrooms on either side of the building, as well as water fountains, and we'll have a networking break at 10:05. For those joining us online, please take that moment to stretch, to grab a snack. We, of course, will have some great snacks for you here at Bayview throughout the day. And at 12:30, our programming will officially conclude here in the RBC Foundry. We look forward to continuing the networking following our program. And now, I am very excited to kick off our program today and welcome our first keynote speaker, Deb Pimentel, General Manager of IBM Canada Technology. Before she joins us on the stage, we are going to begin with a short video. Cue that, please.
AI-generated art. AI-generated songs. AI, what is that? It sure is a lot of fun. But when foundation models are applied to big business, well, you need to think bigger. Because AI in business needs to be held to a higher standard. Built to be trusted, secured, and adaptable. This isn't simple automation that is only trained to do one thing. This is AI that is built and focused to work across your organization. This isn't committing to a single system. This is hybrid-ready AI that can scale across your systems. This isn't wondering where an answer came from. This is AI that can show its work. When you build AI into the core of your business, you can go so much further. This is more than AI. This is AI for business. Let's create.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Women Leading in AI event. So I am honored to be here with you today, ahead of International Women's Day, and to learn from so many wonderful women leaders and allies. Now, in Canada, we've made some great strides from a female leadership role in female leadership roles, but we still have some challenges in gender diversity in leadership, especially when it comes to technology. Now, I've worked in technology my entire career, which has been a while now, and I deeply believe that women bring a unique set of skills and strengths to this sector. Now, I also believe that technology is very powerful, and we can change things with technology. So, as a female leader, a mother to a teenage daughter, and a proud Canadian, I also believe that it is really, really critical that we build solutions, environments, and teams that reflect the diversity of our customers and our communities. Particularly now, with the advent of generative AI at our doorstep, that this technology is going to change so much for us and how all of us live every day. So now the good news here is that, in general, leaders across the globe are aligned. Last fall, a global IBM study on female leadership in the advent of AI reported that by putting women at the forefront of AI is a strategic imperative, not just a diversity initiative. So there's two findings really in these reports that really stuck out for me. So one was 74% of the respondents agreed that increasing female representation in senior leadership was important to ensure economic benefits of AI was equally felt across society. The second thing was that 73% of these leaders agreed that increasing female leadership in the tech sector would be critical to mitigate gender bias in AI. So where do we go from here? We need to put these words into action. And this is a really good start with all the female leaders and allies that we have here today. So to set the stage for today's discussions, I'd like to take the opportunity to take you through how we at IBM are thinking about the opportunity for generative AI in Canada. Also, the power and the potential that we see with generative AI across various industries. The steps that we each need to take as leaders to make sure that we have responsible adoption of AI. And of course, the role that we at IBM are proudly taking. So just last month, we participated in a national event across Canada with academia, government, large enterprise, and startups, where we were talking about Canada's AI journey. And in every panel and every keynote, one theme rang clear. AI has the ability to change how we operate, the way that we work, and how we live our lives. So now we've all undoubtedly read headlines that say that, is AI a good thing? Is it good for our lives? Now, there's a lot of curiosity, there's a lot of excitement around AI, but there's also still some fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Now, I am an optimist at heart, and I would say that most of us at IBM are also optimists about where the journey is taking us. We wake up every single day, focus on how we can use technology to solve the world and Canada's most challenging problems. So now more than ever, though, we're focused on the tremendous opportunity and impact that AI has to unlock new levels of productivity, transform industries, and improve our quality of life. For example, imagine the hours of time that healthcare workers spend on tasks that could be automated, freeing up time so that they can focus on more value-added work and patient care, or having the ability to better analyze operations, providing better data and insights for sustainability decisions so that we can be prepared ahead of disasters, environmental disasters. Or how about the opportunity to strengthen our output and economy as a country? Last week, the Canadian Centre for Innovation Economy reported that AI could add almost 2% to the Canadian GDP. Now, while there is no question that generative AI has immense possibilities, it's also a technology that we want to make sure that we're incredibly thoughtful about in how we deploy it. From technical skills to regulatory expertise, effective and successful AI leadership will rely on many factors, and it will require that we as business leaders make sure that we make sure that we are up on our skills, that we educate ourselves constantly, because this is a very fast-paced changing environment. As business leaders, we need to take the time to map out a thoughtful plan around how we're going to guide the responsible adoption of AI in our organizations. Now, I'm not suggesting that we slow down, absolutely the opposite. But my recommendation is that each of us, as technology leaders, we step back and we map out the right plan for AI adoption in our businesses with two things in mind. Ensure that the technology adds value to our work, and the technology is used in a manner that is ethical, transparent, and inclusive. So where do we start? One way to think about this is as an AI blueprint for your business. And as part of this blueprint, there are 4 key areas that I'd like to take you through. So first of all, start by choosing the AI model that is right for your business. Take the time to establish the criteria that is important to your business. Things like accuracy, scalability, and the ability to integrate into existing systems. Perhaps most importantly, be thoughtful about where your data resides. Consider the risks of models that do not enable your data to reside in-house. Secondly, we need to reimagine how work will get done in our organizations. AI will streamline and automate processes and work, freeing up time for our people to focus on things that will bring much more value to themselves and to our organizations. So, for example, customer care teams, they can automate hundreds of thousands of call center responses with AI, with over 90% accuracy and greater levels of customer satisfaction. Or think of the thousands of hours that HR teams spend that they could augment and automate tasks that they're doing today, labor-intensive tasks, so that they too can focus on more value-added work. Or how about HR, finance, and other internal processes? They can use this data to make better business decisions. The third thing, think about how you will invest and adjust the skills of your people to benefit from AI. In a study that we at IBM did last year, Canadian executives estimated that 42% of their workforce would need to reskill as they implemented AI over the next 3 years. As leaders, we must train our people not only on how to use this new technology, but also on the risks. Lastly, invest the time to build a plan to ensure that the technology is trustworthy and responsible. This is a technology that could potentially reinforce biases. They can compromise customer trust and privacy, spread disinformation, and harm brand reputation. It takes clear, established processes and guidelines to use AI responsibly, to ensure that it continues to do what it's supposed to do, and that it's free of bias and bad intentions. Now, I would be remiss after sharing some of my thoughts here with you today if I didn't share that we at IBM are here to partner with you to help you build your AI blueprint. Last year, we launched IBM watsonx, an AI platform designed for business. watsonx enables businesses to scale and accelerate generative AI solutions with trusted data. That's our headline. Now, my team and I are here today, and we look forward to the opportunity to take you through our platform and how we at IBM are client zero in improving our productivity by leveraging this technology. And also to share with you some of the use cases that we think are most valuable for our Canadian organizations. With that, thank you very much for your time, and I'd like to ask Sonia to come back up on stage. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Deb, for that inspirational keynote. So much alignment in terms of the desire, the drive, the opportunity that we have to create a more robust pipeline of diverse talent in this country and influencing the world in critical generative AI and related technologies. It is now my great pleasure to welcome our moderator, Joanne Gardner, Director of Strategic Initiatives, Bayview Yards Growth and Success, as well as some amazing panelists, Melanie Gilbert, Ivy Chu, Shannon Kennedy, Orchid Jasanashis, to the stage for our first panel discussion entitled Setting Your Organization Up for Success, Platform Modernization in the Time of AI and Guardrails Required to Use It Responsibly. Sincere thanks to the amazing team coordinating on the stage. We love our team here at Bayview. Thank you so much, team.
We're just waiting to bring Ivy up on the stage as well. Remote. All right. Good morning, Ivy.
Morning. Hi there.
So we have everyone here. So my name is Joanne Gardner. I am grateful to have the opportunity to moderate and learn from this panel featuring women at the forefront of AI. So before we delve into the complexities of platform modernization and responsible AI usage, let's start with some introductions. I'm going to ask each panelist to please introduce yourself and kindly share a pivotal aha moment or key experience in your career when you realized the profound impact AI would have. Go first. We'll move through. That's fine.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Melanie Gilbert. I'm a partner at IBM with IBM Consulting, and serving the federal government I partnered with the federal government for over 15 years or so, and helping my clients leverage technology to drive innovation. In my spare time, I'm also an adjunct professor at the University of Lyon and the University of Schema in France, where I teach a course on artificial intelligence for government and disruptive technologies at the master's level. So this is a topic that I'm very passionate about. It's in my, and it's interesting when you say, when was the pivotal moment? I work for an amazing company called IBM, and we talk about AI as if it's very new. It's, IBM's been working in AI for over 70 years, right? And I'll never forget, back in 2011, maybe some of you remember this, but when there was this moment where we had the Watson platform on Jeopardy, and the Watson actually won that game show. And it was such a huge moment in terms of moving natural language processing forward. And it demonstrated to the world that this is not just a mechanical, thing. It actually could do language. It could do a lot more. So I think that was the moment. And after that, there was so much excitement in the office in terms of the investment that we were doing in this platform, the opportunities. And then when we started actually integrating AI into our own company, that's when I saw, okay, this is a game changer. So thank you.
Excellent. So my name is Shannon Kennedy, and I'm currently CIO at Shared Services Canada at the Government of Canada, a girl CIO. So happy to say that. And I really wish my mom knew what a CIO was, because she just cares, I got a pension, a government job, all of those things. But so my background, I actually spent I started in the private sector, spent the majority of my career with the city of Ottawa, who helped put together this site that we're at today, mostly in corporate services. So I'm not a technologist. That's not my background, but I've done a lot in the corporate services space. So my aha moment for AI and what it could do, especially in government where we are held to a different standard, we have really long processes, very long processes. So what AI could do to streamline those processes and to make a better user experience, my goal is I would like employees at Shared Services Canada to have the same experience that people have with private sector firms. So eliminating a help desk, that's my dream. I want to be able to eliminate our help desk that we still have to call like it's 1993. So that's my aha and where I'm headed with AI. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Orchid, and I'm from Toronto, but I actually grew up here and went to school here, so it's awesome to be back. I have a very different background than most of you. I don't have any technical background. I lived in pharmaceutical world for 30 years, working for 6 large Fortune 500 pharma companies. And I would say in the last 5 years of that, we started using automation, not AI, but I would say ML automation. And then the last 3 years, I've been working with various tech companies. One of them has a home here, newenergy.ai. And I'm a fractional marketing lead for them. So I got very excited about the use of AI in healthcare, in pharmaceuticals. And I have to say, yes, government may be a little bit behind, but pharma is actually quite ancient in this area, even though everyone thinks we're doing all kinds of fancy stuff. The fancy stuff is really in the early stage clinical development or preclinical, where we're actually able to bring drugs to market faster because of AI. What hasn't changed is where 70% of the money goes to, which is the commercial side. So you take 10 years to get a drug to market, and after that, you have to launch it. And in that launch phase, lots of things could be automated. And that's the place that I absolutely love. And I formed a company to try to bridge pharma and tech. And I've become an investor, and since then in founders, especially women founders who are really making changes in healthcare and pharma. So my AI moment actually came with Siri, who happens to be a female voice first, right? Siri was always she. Where I started using Siri with my son in the car as I don't want to say babysitting tool, but we started having so much fun with this that even to this day, when we get bored or he doesn't want to talk to me from hockey practice, we ask Siri what she thinks, and it stayed with us. But most recently, I would say the most influential for me personally is ChatGPT, which I'm sure all of you are using. If not, you absolutely need to be, because it's taken my 4-hour moments of what do I write, how do I write it, into like 10 seconds of inspiration. So I absolutely love it. It's my best artificial friend. So
We'll go to Ivy.
Yes.
Ivy?
Hello. Good morning, everyone. Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes. Great. Fantastic. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me. So I'm Ivy Chu. I am a senior strategy manager at TELUS. I own the portfolio of special projects and innovation. And then additionally, I also hold the peer-elect position of president of the TELUS engineering community, where we are building the forum for technical professionals within TELUS to network and learn, and to also celebrate the diversity of our tech professionals. So as a special projects and innovation manager, I'm with the AI Accelerator, which is a team within TELUS that is at the forefront of bringing AI and growth to TELUS and playing a pivotal part in the transformation of TELUS. So I have 2 aha moments in terms of AI. So when I first started my grad work in 2003, my graduate supervisor said to me, and my graduate supervisor is a woman, actually. So just to highlight, the contributions of women within International Women's Month and AI, she said to me, "We are going to apply AI and natural language processing to the engineering design process. So that was in 2003. I completed my master's, my PhD in mechanical and industrial engineering from the University of Toronto. And then, as I worked, as I figured out what I was doing next, I went back to industry, and eventually I landed at TELUS about 10 years ago. So at TELUS in a data and analytics and data science role, I was, doing data science and analytics role. And then in about 2016 and 2017, and this was my second AI aha moment, my VP at the time, Lloyd Switzer, asked me to write 2 position papers on AI, but they were not technical position papers on AI. He asked me to write one paper on the ethics of AI and a second paper on the impact of AI on the future of work. So as you can imagine, this is 2016, 2017, when I wrote these and when Lloyd said to me, let's do this, there was a lot of head scratching, but I think that really set the stage, for myself and for TELUS to actually think about the implications of AI within enterprise and the organization. So that's me in a nutshell. Thank you.
Thanks, Ivy. There is a great deal of collective wisdom and experience on the stage this morning. I think we're going to jump in with motivations. So what are the primary motivations driving your organization to embark on platform modernization initiatives with AI? And then how do these motivations align with your long-term business strategy? I think I'll start with Shannon this time.
Okay, sure. So I would say government motivations, well, for me specifically, it's about productivity, people productivity. As I mentioned, within government, we have some really long processes and we're held to a different standard. And that is how we ended up with some of these processes. We have to be audit ready at all times. So focusing on people. And also in government, I think giving people the cool work. So we have, but still, because of our processes, we have a lot of people that are doing work that is not particularly meaningful, whether that's, answering calls or, dealing with lots of information coming through inboxes and so on. So I think that AI is going to eliminate some of those roles in future, which could be scary to some, but really I think it just attracts better talent in the federal government. I also think it's critically important for government because if you don't give people AI tools, they're going to find a way to get them themselves. And that's very scary in a government context, right? So if you consider scientists who are hungry for these tools to analyze their data because they want to be doing other cool things, not analyzing data, they will find a way. And it will maybe outside of your network and it could be, kind of creating risk for your organization. So I would say that's critically important. And I work for the tech department of the Government of Canada and our long-term business goals. We have a responsibility to be leading in this area, and government is not always leading things, but we actually have a responsibility. So it is a priority of our president and those above. So, yeah.
Okay, I'll speak on behalf of pharma because that's what I know, and I mentioned it a little bit. I think, as I mentioned, there's very simple things. There are simple things that could be automated that definitely, with the use of Gen AI, will happen faster. And those are things related to operational efficiencies. For instance, I'll give you an example. When a drug comes to market and people in pharma are trying to launch it, the commercial team, there's also a lot of compliance and regulation that they need to pass to make sure that the messages, whether it's an advertisement or a packaging, is based on the label and doesn't veer off indication. And that's a very arduous process. Right now, a company like AbbVie has probably 30 people just doing that manually, going back and forth with government agencies and making sure their ads are fine. And those things can be automated today. And that's where a lot of pharma companies are going to now because those costs are high. 70% of the budget of a drug coming to launch is in this area of operational efficiency. And so, and patient support programs that are very manual. Nurses or care workers literally phoning patients to see if they have insurance. Faxing, like fax is like the oldest technology on earth that's still around, is used widely in healthcare being able to digitize faxes is a very simple thing that is possible now that they're not taking on. So a lot of this is inertia. Some of it is very possible. We don't have to go to IBM. You know, I love IBM, but we've got a ton of, I would say hundreds and hundreds of tech companies right now circling us. And, you know, as a proud Canadian, I'd love some of these companies to get in the face of pharma. And Canada, unfortunately, is not the biggest pharma market. It's only 2% of global sales, but the people of Canada, when it comes to healthcare, pharmaceuticals, they're worth a lot more. And my business is very focused in trying to make sure those health tech companies, before they run to Silicon Valley, they actually get a bit massaged and more matured here with Canadian pilots, with Canadian advisory, so that once they get to Palo Alto, they can actually get the investment they need. And this is one of the reasons our venture capital companies are not doing well when they invest in these companies. So part of it is, you know, bringing it back home. It doesn't have to be complicated. Again, it's automating very simple things. Ivy.
Oh, hi there. So one of the primary motivations for AI adoption at TELUS is because our values include customer first and being innovative. So one of our other values is to innovate courageously. And I think this is one of those cases where we thought that this would be a great opportunity to be able to innovate, to be able to put the customer first. And I think one of the things that really speaks to this is that, you know, when in early 2023 and ChatGPT became, you know, publicly and widely available, you know, we actually made the decision to make this tool available internally to all of our team members, rather than saying, oh no, you can't use it, you know, on your work devices, or, you know, you have to kind of figure out how to kind of get to it by yourself. We actually built an internal platform so that everyone can learn and use this to help, you know, to help like boost their own work. And what we did alongside of that, which I think is very important and really speaks back to sort of like some of the foundational position papers that I worked on in 2017, is that not only did we make that platform available, we also published guidance on how to use this platform, right? So, you know, guidance on, you know, this is, you know, these are the types of data that you can use. These are the types of data you should be cautious about. These are the types of use cases you should be looking to use this platform for. And then, you know, one of the, you know, on the data side, like the other motivation is like TELUS has a lot of data, and it's so much data that really only AI the only way to unlock the value of that data is to use AI, to use machine learning, to use neural networks to be able to make sense of all that data, right? And the idea here is, all in all, like, whether we are using what you would call classical machine learning or Gen AI or neural networks, is that AI will augment our human capacity, right? And this is where we will see innovation, and this is where we'll be able to put our customers first, such as like building the best customer experience to help connect Canadians. So that's sort of like some of the prime motivators.
Great. So as you've heard, like AI is about to change the competitive landscape. Our CEO, Arvind Krishna, said recently that AI is not going to replace people, but essentially what it is going to do is there is going to be a have and have nots. So and that applies to companies as well and organizations. So the organizations that are going to apply AI are going to get further than those that don't. There's going to be a gap. And so IBM sees this, my organization sees this as absolutely fundamental to our strategy moving forward. In fact, if you see just internally today, we've actually applied AI to almost every single part of our business. Everything from customer service to sales to finance to HR. We have it integrated today with an organization. This is not a future statement. This is a today statement. You know, a great example of that is even within HR today. You know, for upskilling our employees, our biggest asset, there is an AI tool that will recommend your learning path based on your career, your aspirations, what you've learned in the past. And so it will actually say, for you to get to where you want to go, we are going to recommend this training. And that's being used by over 300,000 of our employees across the world today. So it is absolutely fundamental to our growth. And as just one last thing, as you've heard from these esteemed panelists, like there's the two sides, right? There's an opportunity for innovation, and then there's also the opportunity to become more productive, right? So there's the two that need to balance each other out. But that's yeah.
Thank you. So we heard productivity and people, operational efficiencies and patient support, customer first, being innovative, unlocking value of data, and competitive advantage. So now that we know the motivations and how we align to strategy, could you share some specific examples of real world needs that have guided your decisions in implementing AI solutions, and particularly focus maybe on the challenges and then the resulting outcomes? I'm going to start with Orchid this time.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about some of this before, but I find it fascinating when, well, Deb mentioned it earlier, that we need to educate ourselves. And I think in this room, obviously, you know about this, otherwise you wouldn't be here, or you have some interest. There are tons of people outside this room, and to your point, that will be touched by AI, and they don't think that it is relevant to them. And I think that is the struggle that we have. That is the challenge. There has to be a use case. There has to be a problem we're trying to solve. And it's not about, do you have a problem? It's, what is your problem? And I think that education is a huge piece of where we're stuck. At least I can speak for pharma. I just saw a poll came out from McKinsey where executives in very large pharma companies said, we don't have, we want to put it in our company, but we don't have the right use cases yet, or something like this, which is astounding. So there's some huge education that needs to be done at the very senior levels. There's definitely an age bias towards this. So I hate to say this, but we need to, get some of the young folks in these organizations, showing how they can use AI for the good. But specifically, I'll give you an example of company I basically, I grew when I was at Ottawa. It was my first tech company that I joined since pharma. And we were in the business of automating segmentation and prioritization of customers. Pharma spends millions of dollars a year to bring in very large consulting companies and use their vast data sets to try to do things with Excel, and to actually try to do targeting, segmentation, so that their many sales reps, who all cost $200,000-$300,000 a year, can talk to the right doctors with the right messages in a compliant way. All of that could be automated. And so we actually had an AI powered, and it's still obviously existing. So Ottawa basically created an AI software that was able to take the data once and then continually in near real time to prioritize and segment physicians in a tool that was so beautiful that every sales rep wanted to hang out with it. It didn't look like a typical tool. It looked like Waze. And that may seem silly, but these sales reps are by themselves, they need training, and it helps to have a tool that's very interactive, that's teaching them about their own development and so on. So that was something that was really transformational. I would say one company is using it. It was really hard to sell. I mean, the company went 8x with that one company, but all pharma should be using some tool like that. So there's an example of, it's more than just automation. It's really transformational in the way that people are working. And Ivy.
All right. So I think, on the topic of like customer experience. So we definitely at TELUS, we apply AI to improve the customer experience. And that's all the way from like the network and being able to, understand areas of the network, what we call like areas of concern, and being able to automatically, determine where they are so that we can, be proactive about, looking at the network in specific areas. And then also like in terms of the, being able to recommend the right product mix to our customers, right? So understanding, what are their needs? And this speaks back to customer segmentation, right? So you can imagine that someone who is new to Canada will need a different product, even in terms of like data plans than someone who, has like 3 kids and, works like a a 9 to 5 job and does a lot of like sports on the weekends, right? So we understand like customer segmentation is also something that machine learning and AI can really help with. And then even also being able to protect our customers from all those phishing and fraud instances and theft, identity theft that's happening right now. Every day you go on to your cbc.ca and you read about like a new phishing scam, right? So just being able to react to all of those things that are happening to be able to better the customer experience. And then one of the other things that I'm really passionate about is the application of AI for good. So within my portfolio, we have a couple of projects where we are using AI to do things like reduce greenhouse gas emissions in TELUS's operations, which you can imagine spans the entire nation and can be quite energy intensive, especially operating things like 5G towers and all the central offices and internet data centers. So we have projects where we are looking to do that. We are also having some projects in which we are, looking at the extreme weather that is becoming increasingly common to help protect like all of those pieces of TELUS infrastructure and also TELUS customers as well. So we are certainly also, using our AI smarts to be able to, actually try to, improve the planet that we're living on, because we recognize that we need to use our technology for good. So those are some examples of real world implementations that we're currently, we have currently in implementation, or that, we're looking to roll out. Thank you.
So I have about 3 examples, but the first one I've already talked about, right? How we applied AI within our own organization. Second example I'm going to talk about is a real world example. I don't know if you all remember, this is a few years ago now, that horrible disaster in Lac-Mégantic when the train derailed and there was a disaster in the town. And the reason that happened was that there was a cog that was missing in one of the trains. And it rolled back into the town, and unfortunately there was quite a few people that passed away. So we partnered with CN Rail, and we started looking at how can we help with using AI. And what they've done is they actually implemented a 360-degree camera to go around the entire locomotive, right? Because at the time, you'd have an inspector having to check every single locomotive. It's incredibly mundane. It's repetitive, right? And so by using AI and image recognition, they were able to replace the equivalent of 120 inspectors within a day. What would take one inspector to do, they were able to essentially accelerate that by 120, right? Times 120, with a level of accuracy that just doesn't exist when you have human error, right? So it was a huge success, and they have these cameras now that go all around these trains. And then who wants to look at the undercarriages of trains all day long, right? So now we're liberating those people to do higher value work. And then the third example, real quick, is something I talked to my students about in terms of how AI could potentially impact the world. And this is at a country level. So what's really interesting is the country of Kenya was looking at how can we improve our ease of doing business metric so that we have a better opportunity to obtain funding and grants, okay? And so what they did was they started looking, they did a lot of data analytics and said, okay, so what are some of the successful countries doing in terms of being able to improve their ease of doing business metric? And when they started looking at all of these things, then they actually applied AI and they said, okay, so what are the different scenarios? So let's do some what if analysis with using AI. And then what happened was that they actually realized that by implementing like these 5 things, they were able to greatly improve their economic standing in the world by using AI, which is incredible in my mind. Like, what impact by having a country as in terms of their country strategy to improve their standing within the world. So incredible impact.
It's hard to follow that one with my government examples. However, my back to productivity is so we have to experiment slow and steady and bring people along with us because there's great fear in government, right? So and I'm always looking at things of risk versus reward, and I want to always keep my eye on the reward. So for us, slow and steady, we're a Microsoft shop, so we're using some Microsoft tools. So right now we've placed a chatbot on top of our intranet. So luckily our intranet, back to data, is in really good condition. Not many are, right? There's a lot of, sometimes intranets get out of control over the years. So seeing what we can do to get people the information they need quickly without having to cipher through umpteen policies and procedures and so on. So we're doing some testing there. We're also testing out Microsoft Copilot. So, and I love Microsoft. It's like they give you a little bit of crack, right? And they say, do you want some? Do you want some more? Do you want some more? So people are lined up to get licenses for Microsoft Copilot right now. We're going to be doing about a pilot of about 300. So last week, a real example is it summarized one of our meetings. So I read the notes after and I laughed because it started with the mood of the meeting. And I thought, well, thank heavens I was funny in that meeting, because it did say, you know, like the mood was great and there were jokes and so on. And then it went into, you know, kind of summarizing some of the discussions and the decisions. So the decision points were kind of cool because yes, we want those summarized. We need to document decisions of government, critical, back to audit ready and all of that. But we still, because the technology is new, we still need people to oversee some of those things and maybe checks and balances on whether, you know, did it really capture what was said and so on? Are the nuances captured? So yeah, so we're having some fun experimentation, but we need to keep driving it. And yeah.
Thank you. These transferable ideas really help land the business case, I think, beyond ChatGPT, right, for AI. And it's really nice to land those for us here today. So Deb, in her keynote, underscored the need for thoughtful deployment of AI solutions. So how do you define and establish the necessary guardrails to ensure the responsible and ethical use of AI within your organizational platforms? And then how do you maintain these standards as AI technologies are evolving? Maybe I'll start with you, Gordon.
Okay. I could probably talk a day about this, and I'll try to keep it short because I get very emotional about this topic. Again, I mentioned to you that I work fractional with New Energy AI, and I'll put in a plug that they're probably the only company I know that started with this mission and still has this mission to make sure that AI is governed properly and is trustworthy. And it does it from a third-party perspective. And 3 years ago, when I started working there as an advisor, I was shocked because we would go to governments, we would go to healthcare companies, and there'd be very little interest in this topic. It definitely would not be on a forum like this 3 years ago. People would say, I mean, there were some examples of Clearview AI and some things that had gone wrong, but it wasn't, and you know, driverless cars, those always came up. But in terms of why we should care about AI going rogue was not a topic anyone wanted to talk about, or frankly, buy a product to govern for. And we did have some success with the government, RCMP, Transport Canada, that started to see the importance of AI going or not going rogue. But I just want to say that it was last year this time that this topic became hot and heavy, and it was two people really, Geoffrey Hinton, who's a Canadian, happens to be ex-Google, and Elon Musk. These two people put this topic on the map. They basically woke up one day and said, let's make sure AI doesn't go rogue. And it could have been for, you know, reasons that we may not think were altruistic, but they did it. And the world woke up, including my mother, who suddenly went, oh my gosh, you've been working in AI, is everything okay? And I'm like, what? So I just bring that example because sometimes it takes the silliest, but the most influential things in the world for us to listen and maybe pay attention to. And I personally believe that there's going to, in healthcare, there hasn't been, thank goodness, a disaster, but there will be a disaster because we're using AI now to diagnose people. We're using AI to administer drugs. And we know AI can go wrong as well. And so, unfortunately, one of those things will happen and there'll be lawyers involved, and then the world will pay even more attention. But I think it's really important that we don't lose sight of the benefits, but now there's ways as Deb pointed out, to at least do an inventory. Again, getting educated on the fact that there is AI right around us, instead of saying, I don't have AI use cases, helping people find out what exactly they're doing day to day. And it could be just someone listening to your meetings. That is pretty amazing. And opening up people's eyes, and then going into, okay, so there are solutions here, there's frameworks, and the ethics, transparency, lack of opaque kind of AI tools is the key here. And personally, I'm biased towards saying that I think there should be an external view. I don't think we should be marking our own homework a little bit. I do think every company now is saying we're doing our AI. Every company, very few are doing what IBM is doing to that extent, and people need to use those tools. But frankly, we've had companies do this and say they're trustworthy, and they haven't been. So there needs to be more companies like New Energy, sort of paving that road, and at least saying, there's other ways, other tools that you can purchase to help along with your journey. Ivy.
Go to Ivy.
Yeah. So I think in establishing the guardrails for responsible AI use, it really begins with a culture shift, building the culture and making sure you build the community. And I've seen this in other places, other data heavy industries where I've worked, where it does start with building like the community of users who understand the data, and sort of building that culture around it of ownership and responsibility. And I'm saying, you feel responsible for the way that you're using the data, for the way that you're building your models. So it's an issue of responsible AI by design, right? So whenever, I show up to these Gen AI panels or Gen AI hackathons, right? Everyone wants to immediately jump in and build a prototype. But that's sort of like putting the cart before the horse in many instances, because if we are looking for these viable concepts to actually make it into production, right, we do need to put some thought first in, are we respecting, sort of like the ability to use this data, and are these models going to be biased, and what happens if they are biased? So those are some of the questions we actually have to answer up front, and that starts with building a culture, right? And at TELUS, we have we have built that culture, and we have a large community of data professionals who are very looped into being able to recognize the risk, because they have the tools, they have the training, right? And yeah, as part of that is like TELUS has been named as the outstanding organization by the Responsible AI Institute, and recognized by them for being for being able to have this culture and have this shift. So I think that's sort of like where we are starting with. We can't start with the technology. We need to start with the culture and the people, and that's sometimes hard when people just want to jump in and build a model and do cool things, right? But it's cool. It's cool to think of that. So thank you.
Great note. I know we're getting tight on time, but I would like to hear from both of you. So if you could just keep that in mind.
Yeah, I understood. So it is so critical. So in terms of, in addition to culture, I would say there's two things. There's the frameworks that you need and the tools. IBM is incredibly passionate about ethical and explainable AI. So think about it. What you were just saying before, government is held to a higher standard, right? Because you're not just improving the stock of some company, you're actually responsible for people's lives. And so where's the data coming from? Do you have control over the data? Do you have control over the algorithm? Who built that algorithm, right? And then, and so you really need the frameworks. Like at IBM, we have an actual AI ethics board where and I've been through this board myself twice, where I've had to take projects through to say, okay, what is the business case? So A, what's the value? And B, what are the risks? So as I take it through the ethics board, they then say, okay, I actually went through, I was approved for one and I was rejected for the other one. And so who's accountable within the organization? So coming back to culture, who's accountable? Who's accountable to decide whether a project should move forward? right? There's a lot of projects that are coming forward. And then do you have the tools, right? So, this is one of the things we talked about this morning, but like the governance tools are incredibly important to be able to look for drift, to look for, even once a lot of people don't realize that AI is not like a Microsoft Word. You don't just install it and then 3 years later you upgrade it, right? It's something that needs to be constantly monitored and maintained and ensured that there is, as the data changes, as the environment changes, that it also is, it takes that into account. So I would say that it's like having the auditability, explainability of your AI models are incredibly important. Okay, hope that was fast enough.
I'll just be super quick and agree with Ivy on culture, right? So in government, we have issued a directive on responsible use of AI, and it's great, and it's probably a 15-page document that everyone's going to skim through, but I think it's through conversations. So we're creating avenues for conversations really with our employees who at shared services are primarily technologists who are dying to get their hands on this stuff, but making sure that we have our privacy folks at the table, our legal people, and our security folks as well. I think that balance is good, right? There's the no people and the yes people, and I think having conversations between those two will lead us down the right path. And I'm not sure about the guardrails. There's going to need to be oversight, and sometimes it needs to be people oversight in some cases. It can't just be all automation. But I'm curious to see, as we experiment, what we find out. So,
thank you. I could keep asking questions. I still have so many more, but I know there's some coming in from the audience. So I'll start with Audrey.
I have one online. So this is, how can we ensure that employees are not unknowingly sharing sensitive information such as valuable intellectual property or patient health data via free AI tools?
You can't. I'm just like being very honest. If you're using a free AI tool, you don't know where that data is going. So you should not.
that's about policy, right?
Do we have any from the audience here as well?
Do you have any recommendation on how to increase our AI literacy as non-tech people, and how to keep up more than just like typing something in ChatGPT and hoping that it will give us a good response? Do you have any ideas on the educational roadmap for that?
Is there somebody on the stage, or does Ivy want to take this one?
Yeah, I can certainly take this one. So I think my advice is, yes, actually, experimenting with ChatGPT is actually a really good start, and not just experiment it, but like very recently, like OpenAI actually released sort of like their recommendations on prompt engineering, right? So take time to go through those tutorials and actually like work through the exercises they recommend, right? Because that will also not just, if you just, type in something in the chat GPT and you go, oh yeah, that's a cool answer, right? Like, for example, like the OpenAI tutorial will actually take you through how to incrementally improve your prompting, right? So that will actually give you some insight into, how you can interact with something like ChatGPT. But I also recommend that you go to events like this, and that you go to, any trainings that are offered, either by Google or Microsoft, and oftentimes they'll offer that to your employer or your school for free, just so that they can get as many people on their platform as possible. And there are various newsletters too that you could just subscribe to, like Alpha Signal and TLDR, and I recommend that you do that. And even if you're just skimming it, if you see something that catches your interest, that's where you could double click.
So if I can just add to what Ivy's saying real quick, because I'm in the academic space as well, there's a lot of free university courses online that you can take. like check out Harvard and Stanford, and IBM has free courses as well. Most organizations have a lot of really good free courses. So don't hesitate to look into that as well. It doesn't cost necessarily anything.
Yeah, I just wanted to say there's one that really helped me because I'm definitely not that background. And I think it's still one of the good ones. It's free. I think it's called Elements of AI. It's out of University of Finland. It's free and it starts easy, it gets complicated, but I really enjoyed that. I just wanted to make a comment about the use of free stuff, free AI. I think it is unrealistic that people won't. And I can tell you from what's happening right now, again, large pharma companies have those policies and people are using their personal tools to also sort of connect and so on. So I think it's really hard to control. It goes back to how important the guardrails are. But I actually think that the issue there is transparency in how you find your data. So in school, for instance, my son is using ChatGPT. No one can stop the kids from using ChatGPT, but they're asked to at least reference it to say, you know, dear teach, I got this answer from ChatGPT. So at least be transparent would be one thing, but I think it's really unrealistic to have those policies in large companies personally.
That's all we have for time. Thank you very much. I mean, I heard augment human capacity, AI for good, the representation of climate change, economic standing of the global South countries, higher value work, and then ending on the need to educate ourselves in some great spaces there. So thank you very much for your insight today.
Thank you so much to our incredible panelists.
She was brave.
This topic is so important, and dialogues like this help to advance us and work through those very critical, challenging questions, opportunities, particularly with respect to responsible and ethical AI. Thank you so much for sharing your insight and inspiration with us today. It's now time for our first refreshment break. For those here at Bayview, we have 15 minutes. Please take a moment to network, enjoy some coffee, mix and mingle. Lunch will be coming at 12:40. For those online, we encourage you to take a little bit of time to stretch your legs and come right back, 15 minutes. As an important reminder, our programming begins at 10:20, and trust me, you will not want to miss AI for Privacy and Compliance demonstration with Jackie Konska and our upcoming panels. Thank you, everyone. invite you to take your seats, please. Our exciting program continues in 60 seconds. I love the networking buzz. I am so encouraged to see this foundry full every single day now. It's just incredible to me. It's really the value of Bayview. Bayview is not a place, it is an experience, an opportunity where I say birds of an innovation feather come together to pursue shared innovation objectives and outcomes. Thank you so much, everyone. Welcome back. We have an incredible session coming up for you. I am honored to welcome Jackie Sonka to the stage, and she will be providing an overview of AI for privacy and compliance demonstration. She is the business technology leader at IBM Client Engineering, and we will have a short Q&A led by Amna Jamal as well. Please join me in welcoming them to the stage.
Thank you. So organizations who deploy AI models want to do so responsibly, meaning they want to make sure that that when a model goes out of compliance, that the people who need to know about it, they understand the risks associated with it, and they also can take immediate action and remediate. So I'm going to show you a demo using IBM Open Pages for model risk governance that does just that. Audrey, if we could run the demo. So let's say I'm an AI specialist and I log in the morning. This is my home page. I can see the tasks that I have to do during the day that are my priority tasks. I've got 2 of them. I also see my model inventory, and I can see model validation and change management that's expected of me as part of my organization's model risk framework. I know that I have a task with regards to one of my models that's out in deployment, so I want to take a look at them. I have 18 of them that are out in deployment. Here's a list, and I'm going to dig into the one that was alerted to me that needs some attention, model number 9. I go in here and I can see all the information about model 9. For example, I can see it's approved for deployment. I can see its version number, and scrolling out, I can see lots of other information. This actually goes on and on, so if we can sort of fast forward, I'll scroll down a bit. Take a look at different visuals, including my 3 change requests on this one, and the model and the history of the validations that I've done on this model. I can go back out and take a look at all the dates dating back to when this model was first conceived to when it was even approved. So let's say I take care of those 3 change requests. I've done all that. I go back to my home page. I can see that now I don't have any change requests anymore, but I still have 1 priority task to do. It has to do with a metric called metric 13 that has to do with performance of my models. My models are continuously monitored for performance, and there's something with regards to this one. I can see that it's showing me that there's a model that's gone out of compliance. It's now in the red breach status, which is the highest status in my company's model risk framework. And I want to investigate about this. So I'm not the only person who's received information. Others have received it on their homepage and email, and it's really triggered workflow for us. If I scroll down a bit, I can see, start to investigate. I can see that this model has gone from yellow status to this red highest risk status, and I can take remedial action. For my remedial action, I can do several things. One is I can add a new issue, or I can link to an existing issue. And once I've done those actions, I can mark my review as complete, and it brings me back to my home page where I can see that I no longer have any priority tasks to do. By the way, this dashboard can be presented in other ways too. You can present visuals. This is entirely editable to make it more interesting for different audiences. And I hope you found this demo interesting. So it had to do with Open Pages model risk governance. You can find out more at ibm.com/openpages. And I also, we're very lucky to have Amna Jamal with us, who is data and AI brand technical specialist at IBM, to answer your questions. So I invite Amna to come up to the stage and really talk about how this fits also into our AI governance solution.
Any questions? So you must be wondering, how does it all fit with generative AI? Like, how do you govern ChatGPT models? How do you govern all the different kinds of models that are coming out there? Like Meta is coming out with something new. Microsoft OpenAI is coming with something new. Like, how do you govern all of these things? How do you ensure that you have workflows in place where you can actually go through the model use cases, like as Orchid mentioned earlier? Can you ensure that you have a workflow in place where you can validate the models or the use cases that you'll be onboarding? Can you ensure that there's bias in the models that you're onboarding? And if there's bias, how do you monitor that? How do you ensure that you can mitigate and remediate the issues associated with the bias in the models as well? So this framework is not just limited to, let's say, the workflows, but also it ensures that you have model risk governance in place. You can evaluate and monitor the models that you're bringing in and tie it back to the use cases that you have in place. For instance, you have 10 models to select from. Facebook being one, Meta being one, there's another one, like there's a new model every day. So how do you ensure that if you're using 10 models, of those 10 models, you use one particular model? What is the criteria for you to opt for a particular model? Is it the accuracy? Is it the cost of running that model and so on? So you need to collect all of those facts throughout the life cycle of the use case where you can evaluate and monitor all of these aspects. So any questions around that? Have you seen any issues, any concerns when you're using these models at the enterprise setting or in your day-to-day life? Okay, no questions.
So we have many different professions that are starting up around model risk governance. So for example, when we work in client engineering, really with the customers who are really at the leading edge of this, and we bring in AMNA when we need to really dig down in, we find that not only is there's a so-called AI specialist who owns and validates models, but there's going to be a governance employee as well who's going to be responsible for for the workflow that's set up between all of the individuals who need to be involved when a model falls out of compliance, for example.
I think there's a question.
Yeah, actually, Jackie and Amna, it's right in line with what you just started talking about. I was going to ask, who are the persona who would be interacting with open pages? Because you have your teams who are building out models, who are deploying them, but then you also have, like you said, your governance teams who need to oversee and develop policies and process. So can you talk more about the different roles that would interact with the interface?
Sure, yeah. So the entire AI governance has different personas involved in it. So from a developer side of things, you need to have a platform where you can actually go and do the coding, evaluate those models technically. The second persona would be of an analytics manager who can monitor where exactly in the life cycle is a particular model in right now, and why was a particular model chosen for this particular use case or application. And third being the dashboard that Jackie showed earlier, is to give you a holistic view of all the models that are running, traditional machine learning models or the foundational models running for different use cases across the enterprise. It doesn't matter whether it's using IBM technology, those models, or Azure, AWS, any third-party vendor. So you can collect facts from there. So here the persona would be risk and compliance manager or the enterprise data architect who wants to know what is happening at the enterprise level. Does this address your ask? Okay. And if no further questions, I'll pass it back to Sonia. Okay, thank you, everyone.
Was enjoying an excellent conversation with Anita Bates at IBM. All good. It's wonderful to be back. Thank you so much, Jackie and Amna, for that fascinating demonstration. And it's now time to dive back into our program with our next panel discussion. Please join me in welcoming our moderator, Pascal Duguay, Associate Partner, Public Sector, IBM Canada, to the stage, alongside with fellow panelists Christina Casey, Stephanie Duguay, and Aaron Kelly of Advanced Symbiotics for our next panel entitled AI for All Canadians, increased service and experience for citizens, clients, and customers.
Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Pascal Duguay, and I'm a lead client partner for IBM Canada's federal public sector team here based in Ottawa. I'm really happy to be continuing the discussion today and moderating our second panel, specifically on a topic of utmost importance, which is AI for all Canadians, increased service and experience for clients and customers. And I'm also really humbled by, the people that are here today, celebrating the power of women, specifically in leadership and technology. So thank you, everybody, for joining us today. As we know, and as we've been discussing all morning, AI has really emerged as a transformative force and really reshaping our industries and even our societies, our cities around the world. And what we want to explore during this topic this morning is really how AI can and has been harnessed within Canada to be able to really deliver significant experience to either our organizations, our government departments, but as well as our Canadian citizens. What type of challenges we are facing specifically in Canada when it comes to implementing these types of solutions. And then most importantly is how can we foster a culture of AI readiness, digital literacy, and accessibility while maintaining, a momentum and a standard for innovation and inclusive technologies in Canada. And so I'm joined here by our three panelists, and I'll let you all introduce yourselves a little bit more in depth within our first question. But we have Christina Casey, who's the Chief Service and Digital Officer for Transport Canada, Stephanie Duguay, who's a Managing Consultant and Data Scientist for IBM Canada, as well as Erin Kelly, who's the Chief Executive Officer for Advanced Symbolics, Inc. And we'll dive into our topic as soon as possible. With our first question, and what I want to do is get a better understanding of is, with your experience within your roles, what priority opportunities or pressing challenges are being faced by government departments, Canadian organizations? What pressures are you feeling from Canadian citizens themselves? And how can AI be leveraged to, address these challenges head on?
I'll
start with Christina.
Hi, everyone. I'm really thrilled to be here today, and it's great to see all these women in the room. As someone who's worked in the technology space, I won't say for how long, but more than a decade, it's amazing to see the transition, to see more and more women at the table. So super happy to be here and support this event. I will answer this question probably in a three-parter because I actually think in my role, AI can be transformative in three different areas. The first one is the expectation of our employees. And government has grown and has transformed quite a bit, especially as part of our pandemic response. But there's been a lot of conversations around how do we kind of right-size government to move forward. And if you use a lot of the languages in that post-digital age. So we can't afford the model that we have in place right now. And we really need to think about how do we want to leverage artificial intelligence and robotic process automation to really streamline the work of our employees so that they can focus on the value add. So a lot of the work that we're doing at Transport is how can we actually leverage, low-hanging fruit artificial intelligence to really help streamline the work and, to be honest, streamline some of our costs. So there's really quick wins around translation. We spend a lot of time on access to information. And not only do we have to streamline the access to information time that we spend, we have to become a little bit better on making sure that we're consistent in our response. We've been a lot in the media lately around IT spending. So I think there's an opportunity to kind of use technology and AI to kind of drive that piece. But more importantly, we do a lot of of inspections at Transport Canada, and we just don't have the workforce to be able to go to every rail crossing, to inspect every boat coming in. So how do we leverage AI to model and predict areas where there's higher risk? And how can we use technologies to really change the way we're doing inspections? So Internet of Things, sensors on rail cars. So that's really transformative in terms of the way we work. The second piece is how we service the citizens and the companies that interact with transport. And I think that that's where there's a huge opportunity. I think the expectations of the community which we serve is a lot higher. The fact that we have 295 different phone numbers to call, which probably all go to dead landlines, to get a question about how do I get my boating license renewed. There's huge opportunity using things like chatbots to help streamline that experience, but still allow to have that human interaction. And we do, as a government, ask the same question to the same people in a different format in so many different ways. So I think there's a huge opportunity to tell us once and to really leverage that better user experience, so that and to predict when you're going to get that service. So I think there's a huge opportunity on the service delivery side. The third piece, which is really the more complex piece, is that the industry in which we support is changing so quickly. And autonomous cars, the use of AI in remote piloting of boats, like that is a transformative approach in how the transportation grid is actually run. And that introduces cyber risks, but it also introduces huge opportunity. We have a workforce shortage, but how do we ensure that our regulations as an organization and as a government continue to meet the needs of where the industry is going? So we have to take some time to actually kind of understand where the technology is going and where AI is going, and how do we as a government ensure the safety of Canadians. And that is a huge game changer. So there has to be a lot of interaction between us and industry, and a lot of R&D that we're doing in terms of how can we make, using drones to deliver food up north as an opportunity, but at the same time keep that safety element and that security element. So cyber opportunities, understanding where the industry is going, and I think it's huge and very transformative. And we have to shift our mindset to actually be ahead of that, or actually stay toe to toe. So I think those are three very long-winded answer, but those are three really key areas that we have to think about from our perspective.
Maybe if I can quickly add, Christina, I think that those 3 points were really important. And also I'd like to highlight that this is not a new pressure that we feel. This is an ongoing challenge that we've been seeing for years. How do we empower our people? How do we better serve our citizens, our community? And how do we adjust the industry to wrap around that? The technology and the advancements in AI is really what's driving the acceleration and presenting new ways that we can address this challenge. So I think it's a really interesting opportunity that AI has provided us, and it's just changing the way that we're approaching these three areas.
And Erin, how do these differ or relate to one another in terms of your industry, your role?
Yeah, so I'm not sure if this is on. Okay. Yeah, so just to give you a bit of background on us, my company uses AI for human behavior prediction and research. So we've done a lot of work with the government. And I think the big thing that AI is enabling right now is that ability to reach diverse populations, because you can have the best programs in the world. If people don't trust their government to deliver them, these are very, very polarizing times. I think we can all agree, those of us who've lived through the trucker protests and everything here. Being able to reach those hard to reach populations. So as an example, we've done work with Health Canada on drug recalls. How many people would you have to call to find out if they got the notice about fluoroquinolone drug recalls? You have to call 100,000 people. That's something that just wasn't done before. With AI, we can go in and find those populations through social right away, see if they got the notice, where did they get it, did they change their behavior? We've done suicide and depression risk monitoring that if you Google that, it's got a lot of publicity. We redesigned the public transit system in Quebec City just by using social data at 10% of the cost they used to do it at. So a lot of applications. Key to those things is being able to reach those hard to reach audiences. These are populations we never measured before, whether it's people on certain medications, the trans community that is often unheard, low-income Canadians, how are they faring? How are they getting around? What are their issues? Even we did some work for Transport Canada on cars. You know, Transport Canada, if you call a phone number and report your car, you've got a lot of data on it. But what about those people who just go on social and complain about it? And we are able to track all those. So there's lots and lots of applications, and it's really being really efficient about how you do it. You can get it done in hours, not weeks or months. And you can really reach those hard to reach populations and make sure that they're heard in the data as well.
Erin, you touched on this a little bit in terms of applications, but what are tangible pilots, use cases, examples of AI within your respective areas? And what's been the measurable impact of these initiatives in terms of enriching citizen services, whether that's in the background of citizen services or in the foreground? And I'll start with Christina.
Yeah, measurable is going to be hard to answer because I do think that we've tipped our toe in the AI space. And I think we've been focused on kind of getting the technology out as opposed to kind of fully understanding the benefits. But I think the example that is the most pertinent is we use AI to track cargo coming into the country or being moved in the country. And really instead of doing inspections of each cargo, we're using predictive AI to kind of determine, what's the risk component of it, understand what some of that movement will be in terms of ensuring the safety and the effectiveness of our supply chain. And that's really demonstrated how predictive modeling can actually help us focus our area. So that's what we have in place now. We're looking at using AI around the transportation of dangerous goods. And then a lot of work around making sure that we can optimize the supply chain from the time something is on a ship to the time it hits a port, it goes off a port onto a train and then onto a truck. So that's really where we're going. The funnest one that we have in place though is around whales. And at first, when I first joined Transport, I was like, rail? They're like, no, whales. I was like, well, why are we talking about whales at Transport Canada? But we are. Boats create a lot of noise pollution and actually change the migration patterns of whales in the St. Lawrence Seaway. And because now we have sensors that sit on buoys in the St. Lawrence Seaway, we work very closely with the Department of Fishery and Ocean, where we can actually look and monitor where the whale patterns are. And then we can see the boats coming in, and then using predictive analysis, we actually tell the boats to slow down or we actually change their path. And work a lot with the Seaway. So that is very important because we actually saw more calves born this year that we've had in a while. So I think that's the environmental impact, and it's really, really cool to see the movements of the pods of whales and the boats, and you can see it in a little bit of real time, and then get some of that aerial surveillance where we can actually see the baby calves. So that to me is probably the funnest one, but a lot of it is around the safe movement of goods.
The use case that comes to mind for me is an AI solution that we deployed a couple of years ago and have continued to further refine over the years. And you can all be using it right now if you'd like. It's the Canada Post chatbot app. So for a bit of background around the challenges here, the contact center was overwhelmed with the number of customers like ourselves inquiring about where's my package, or I'm having an issue with my package here, or where's my nearest mailbox, or just general support issues. And so I'm sure you can imagine just the number of people in Canada reaching out to the contact center, how overwhelmed the contact center would be. So what we did is we started developing a chatbot solution that could be able to handle those most frequently asked questions and inquiries. We started with the chat solution in English, developed the same solution in French, so we were able to handle English and French in the chat. That further developed to be able to handle now voice. So for those who may not have access to a computer or are not comfortable using that technology, you can go in and call in and get your answers resolved by the chatbot as well. So the impact that this has had is tremendous improvement and deload for the contact center. So now they can focus on the more important critical questions and offer a better service to the customers who need that human-to-human interaction and support. Also, what's interesting is this solution, now with the advancements in generative AI, opens the door to other possibilities of how can we even better understand and handle these inquiries. So better understanding the language that people use. I'm sure how we pose one question may not be the same as your fellow colleague here. So large language models is really supporting an even better handling and understanding of how we use and leverage the chatbots.
I spoke. It's okay. Can you hear? Yeah. All right. All right. Thank you. I spoke a little bit about some of the use cases, but additional ones. We recently, there was a salmonella outbreak in Canada. People remember with cantaloupes. We work with Genome Canada. They were able to upload wastewater data, see where there are people complaining about the symptoms, because a lot of people don't know this, but you can't just use wastewater data to predict disease. You need another factor because salmonella can get in other ways. Seeing the social data of people saying, I have fever, I have diarrhea, and we see the uptick in the wastewater data, we're able to get the warning out a lot faster than you would normally. So that's just lives saved, because before you would have a number of people, a number of deaths before you could know what had caused it. Same thing with suicide prediction research, morbid topic. The idea there is that when we see signals in communities of increased depression or suicide ideation, you get the counselors there before the suicides happen. The risk in the past was there would be suicides in a community, you send counselors there, and then you take counselors away from another community, and then you see increased suicides in that community. So this is preventing deaths on multiple fronts. A happier note, we did some work, forget the department and the government, but they did a whole bunch of ads on getting people to be sustainable, caring about the environment and all that. We were able to show the exact impact of those ads. In the past, you put out the ads and you hope it was money well spent. Now we're able to do lookalike samples of people who had similar points of view on the environment before, but they're in the United States. They weren't exposed to the ads, but they're identical samples in Canada. And we know the dates that the ads were shown. We're able to see an uptick in people talking about these issues, talking about making changes. And we were able to give the government exact quantification of the impact that their ads had on behavior. So that's just an example, all very, very measurable. So you can measure all of your outcomes now, whereas before you couldn't.
And these are all really great, diverse examples of how we're enriching citizen services, sometimes a little bit in the background. I'm a little bit biased towards the one that are, aligned to our sustainability initiatives and saving lives, but all really great examples. When implementing these types of solutions, when, looking towards adoption of AI, what types of barriers or challenges are we meeting within the Canadian context? And I'm going to start with you, Stephanie.
Yeah, the main one that I'm seeing is people don't know where to start. And they don't know how to approach it. They don't know if it's necessarily right for their business. I know that when we speak about AI, Gen AI, it seems like a magic wand and that it can do anything and everything. But it's not necessarily the best use case for the technology. And then that's the reasons why we're seeing that a lot of these AI pilots or use cases are not making it past the pilot phase or not being deployed and adopted and scaled across the organization. So my suggestion to overcome and mitigate this barrier is start from the very beginning of what is your AI strategy? How does it align to your overall business objectives? And then think about your customers, your users, and what are their top pain points and challenges. Once you start thinking about those components and then you start to layer on the design of AI and how it can truly make an impact, that's where it starts to make the difference between having an AI solution that doesn't make it past the prototype phase to being adopted, scaled, and used across your organization.
Erin?
Hello, hello. Oh, good. Here we go. I think I'm finding the biggest issue with my customers is not understanding the importance of the quality of the data that you feed your AI. I mean, it is training, and it really is garbage in, garbage out. And we spend a lot of time educating customers about bias in data. If you're bringing your own data, we, for the most part, don't allow customers to bring their own data because it's usually not very good. Genome Canada is an exception. They have to be very well educated to do it. But I'm seeing so many customers don't understand the importance of sampling, the importance of just removing the bias. Forget about consistency and all of those things. That's important too, but we can help with that. But we can't know if your data is biased. So you really have to know that. Now, in our case, like I said, we don't, all except one customer, we provide the data for them. Okay, we get it off public sources and all of that. So we know the quality of it, and our algorithms sort out the bias. But I see so many AI companies out there that are not doing that, and the customers are blind to that. We don't have standards. The EU is coming out with standards. The UK, Canada, US have decided not to have standards. And I do think it's a problem, especially when you're looking at impactful things like healthcare and fintech, that we don't have standards, at least around the quality of data and making sure that the data is unbiased. To me, this is a huge red flag.
And do these differ in the public sector, Christina?
I would agree it's the same problem. It's overwhelming around where do you start. But the biggest challenge I'm seeing is people talk to me about we need more data and we need to use AI. We have a problem articulating what business problem we want to solve and the purpose behind it. Second problem is that people want to do it for their individual program or whatever piece that they're working at. But the real value of AI is if you start integrating multiple sources of data. So we really need to think more enterprise. And if you use AI, let your colleagues know that you're doing AI, because that algorithm can probably lead to answer multiple questions if you do it properly. Bias is, I agree, the quality of data is a challenge. We have data all over the place at Transport. We really need to, we're a collection of data hoarders, I think, but we don't put it in our data repository. So there's work to do there. Cyber considerations are one that probably keep me up at night a little bit more, because it makes cyber protection within a department a lot more challenging, but it also, people don't necessarily think of cyber when they're actually doing AI. So I know the previous panel talked about that. And once they do AI, people don't actually continue through about how does this change our business process? How does it change? Like, how do we make sure that this is fully adopted and it becomes part of our culture? So it's actually moving it out to like an IT solution to actually a transformative way of how we run our business. That is also a piece that I think we haven't quite mastered yet.
Yeah, that made me think of something else in the sense that as you're trying to foster a culture of AI readiness and digital literacy, but you're also trying to balance elements of, privacy, security, accessibility, inclusivity, right? How do we do that? How do we foster and maintain the momentum when it comes to these types of technologies, but balance all of these other components as well? And maybe I'll start with you, Christina.
We need to stop talking about AI. Like, at the end of the day, AI or Gen AI or natural language processing is just another toolkit that we have to actually help solve a problem. And we need to kind of not get away from thinking about the privacy considerations, the bias considerations, the business process impact, the service impacts of what we're trying to do. That should be our focus, and let the people that are smart around using AI tools figure how to do it. What I find I'm struggling with is that AI and the fact that you can do a lot of this stuff by using open source tool has made everyone a technologist, which in a lot of ways, citizens like based programming or whatever you want to call it, development is an amazing thing. But they need to be educated around what are the right guardrails to put in place and how are you making sure that this investment is the right investment to be made. So that's where I'm finding we're talking too much about AI, as opposed to here's the business problem. Can we get together as an organization to find the best way to solve it? And that's what needs to be kind of where we focus on. And then that's just a tool in our toolkit. That's a little bit my opinion.
What I'd add to that is I think when you're thinking about culture and instilling that or fostering a culture of innovation and curiosity, one way you can do this is by providing your people with a space to safely experiment with the technology. So yes, starting with the business problem, what is the best solution? Then take that one step further and provide a safe environment for your data scientists and developers to experiment what those solutions could look like. We're all figuring it out as we go. I wish we had the magic ball to say, yes, this is exactly what you should do, when you should do it, and how to approach it. But we're all figuring it out as we go. So if you provide that safe environment to explore and experiment, you'll learn very quickly what's working, what's not. The data, is it biased? Is it right for the solution? Do we have enough? And then through those lessons, you can then take it, those next steps, and you'll see pretty quickly that the people that you get engaged in that process are going to naturally start thinking of new innovative approaches to solving your top challenges and being more comfortable with the topic and areas of AI. It won't seem as scary or unknown anymore. It'll be more familiar and ingrained in the culture.
Totally agree with Stephanie. Just get started and don't wait until you have an emergency, because then all of your problems compound, right? Then you've got all the bias and everything because you didn't start with something small and work out the kinks. I would just say that once you get started with something, whether it's having more diversity, for example, if you have diversity in your data, you will remove the bias. So they're all reinforcing in a way, except privacy has to be its own layer. But by improving the diversity, you improve the bias. By improving the bias, you increase the diversity. So just get started. Experiment with something where you actually know what the outcome should be and see what the AI produces, and then you'll have an idea of how off kilter you just keep working from there. Start when you with a project where you know the outcome and it's not urgent. I tell all of my customers, don't come to me when you've got a house on fire and then expect miracles. I mean, start now.
Thanks, everybody. With the time that we have left, I just want to ask one last question. Maybe we can keep it short and sweet, and I'll do a reverse order and start with you, Erin. What's one problem that you're looking forward to solving, whether that's with AI or with another type of technology?
So our big mandate for us, you've heard of the Human Genome Project. I see ourselves as doing the Human Cognome Project. We want to figure out mental health, mental processes. We want to decode that whole space. So, I mean, that's a big, it's not tomorrow. We're starting with baby steps, but that's something I'm looking forward to really understanding, because that unlocks the key to a lot of strife and mental health and depression. That's why we do our work in suicide and depression, mental health. We want to really understand that, because then we can really help people get over their addictions, get over the things that they want to heal from, and right now we do that for DNA. We don't know how to do that for our minds. So that's.
Thanks, Erin. Stephanie?
The problem I'm looking forward to solve the most, I think maybe we can all relate, is just how can I be more productive in my day? I'm trying to find all the tasks that I do throughout my day-to-day that maybe I don't like doing so much, or that's a bit more repetitive. And I'm trying to find the optimal way of how I can reduce or potentially eliminate those tasks and really focus more on the critical thinking problems and the bigger challenges that we're facing in our society today. So in my mind, if I can reduce some of the repetitive, mundane tasks in my day-to-day, that means I can focus on more of the critical thinking and really use my brain, challenge my brain a little bit.
I'm not sure I'll solve it, but the supply chain file, really, I find it fascinating. Optimizing the supply chain using data and digital is fascinating because it could help things from food prices to understanding where government should be making physical infrastructure investments. And then there's all kinds of opportunities around securing our supply chain as well. That to me it's an enormous problem, but with so much upswing and opportunities.
Thanks, everybody. We're going to, I'm sure the audience is eager to ask their own questions to our panelists. So before we move to that, I just want to thank you three for having such an enriched conversation around how we can better service Canadians and their experience within your respective areas. So thank you.
So all of you talk about reducing bias in the AI systems. I think this is like a slippery slope because as you saw with like the Google Gemma models, when you try to tune some other knobs, it gives really bad results. So I guess I have a two-part question. If you are asking somebody to tune for the biases, who sets those rules and how do you propose to do that? Also, you spoke about increasing the diversity in the data, but you don't know what the blind spots are. So how do you go about creating that initial data set? And yeah, I mean, just from a policy point of view, what would your suggestions be as to how to reduce these blind spots and yeah, the bias?
Sure, I can start that if you like. Great question, thank you. So we do human behavior research. Now there's lots of AI companies out there that will do marketing research and prediction and all of these things, right? The big mistake though is, for example, if you're downloading all of the data from the social media fire hose, that data is incredibly biased. What's biasing it? Well, the people who post 10 times an hour, the lobbyists, the fact that the people on social media are just skewed a little bit, they're skewed a little bit wealthier, they're all of that. So now we know what the Canadian population looks like because we have census data that tells us that, Statistics Canada. So the first thing, just as a simple example, if you want to know what Canadians think, you can't take Twitter fire hose data. You will be very biased, overrepresented in certain groups. So what you have to do is look at the census data and then curate the sample that you listen to in social media and listen to those people. Make sure that if 5% of the population is Indigenous, then 5% of your sample is Indigenous. If you just take the Twitter fire hose, you'll probably be underrepresented in Indigenous and French Canadians and all that. You also have to speak other languages. And it turns out that that's incredibly hard to do. The other thing you want to make sure is that in your sample, you're not listening to social bubbles and echo chambers. So if I'm in the sample, you know, my sister's not in the sample and we're not just listening to Erin and her friends. So you have to make sure, and that's called independence of the sample. So when you're doing that kind of research, you have to have representation, independence. Now we have that in market research today. It's called a randomized controlled independent sample of the population. You don't get that from fire hose data. So again, you have to curate. So that's just one example of making sure you have a baseline, the census data, or whatever else you are using that you know is accurate. And so when you're taking from this source, and the reason you're taking from social is because it's a leading source, it's a lead indicator because it's fresh and it's up to date, that you have a distribution from which to compare it to. So that's one example.
I'd like to also underscore that this is the blend of AI and the human touch that is still very much needed and important when you're developing AI, any AI solution. So what Erin described is exactly the statistical methods as well as the human verifications of your input and output. So I think that's an important question that you've asked, and also a good example of where the human is still very much needed and involved throughout the entire life cycle of you have an idea for your AI to we've deployed your AI, and where the human is needed at every step of the way.
And from a government perspective, we do get a lot of guidelines from the Treasury Board, really kind of helping us ensure that we do not discriminate, or that we are not biased to the citizens to which we serve. So you just need to make sure that those policies are followed. I also think understanding the authoritative source of the data. So what is your true source that you should be referencing? And as part of any AI project, I'm not going to understand the entire lens of bias, but bringing in experts, doing some testing of the data and the results to make sure that you reduce biases is going to be important in any implementation of AI that we do.
Super. One of the pillars that you talked about was the culture of readiness. Would love to hear either from experience or just some frameworks that you may be using in your own spaces. For example, you had spoken about an experimentation area, a safe space. If I were to create a change in culture, what might be the top 3 things that I need to tackle first?
Well, okay, so I can maybe start. So first thing is about the mindset. And I know this was touched upon in the first panel, but it really is a mindset shift. So what I mean by that is instead of viewing the road ahead to implementing and injecting AI into your day-to-day or in your organization, might seem like a daunting task. Whereas with a mindset shift of, okay, well, if I, have a process where I'm, creating incremental value and taking it one step at a time, you'll slowly but surely get to the top of the mountain of achieving your goals when it comes to AI. So I think mindset shift of, okay, it's not, that large mountain ahead of me. Let's just take that first step. And then that bleeds into the next point around that safe environment. So I can speak what we're doing at IBM. We are partnering with organizations, Canadian departments and enterprises, and working together on pilot implementation. So what that looks like is we'll come in and we'll work with the organization on establishing the environment that's needed, and then we'll work with them to collect the data that we need, and we start tackling a very small use case, whatever that might look like. And so what we learned through that process is, okay, what's needed from an environment standpoint, what works well with that data. The data that we're using, are we seeing those biases? Can we clearly explain our inputs and outputs? And then what's the impact that we're seeing? Is the technology working for this use case? And then from there, then it opens the conversation of, okay, how do we now get this in the hands of our users? And so I think to wrap it up, the combination of mindset shift with providing a space where you can apply and get hands-on with the technology is where the culture shift happens.
No, it's really good, and I agree with the baby steps and the small projects. I also think picking a project that is net new. So I mentioned before when we did the work with Health Canada, drug recalls, that was just not done before because you can't do a phone survey to find out if people stopped using fluoroquinolones. Not practical. So starting off with a project that's not, okay, I'm taking your job, no more, truck drivers for you. No, this is something we're not doing now. It's a new project. Or it's finding a pain point in your organization and letting your employees, listen to them and have them tell you what the pain points are in their job that they're not enjoying. Well, is there an AI solution for that? Because then it'll be more accepted, right? I'm answering your pain point. And then I think having something that's magnanimous, like you're saving lives or you're showing the impact of what they're doing, the advertising department, hey, look, the ads you did made a difference in people's lives. So having that positive reinforcement, that's always a winning formula. And I think sometimes we're coming at AI like it's fearful, 42% of people are going to lose their jobs, all of that. Let's emphasize the good stuff. Google Maps. Could you live without that? That sort of thing.
The only other thing I would add, just quickly, is groupthink will kill creativity. So diverse teams are key. You need to make time and space for it. So create an innovation fund, allow people time to do this, because if they're doing it on the corner of their desk, it's going to be kind of halfway there. And then just kind of show the art of the possible, because everything else is just a concept. I think if you can show the art of the possible, it creates a momentum of creativity. So make the time, allow the space, and allow people to ask questions and ask the right questions, and not see it always from the same point of view.
Not to pile on too much, but wanted to leave you with a little bit of a tactical tip maybe. In terms of fostering a culture of innovation and exploration, we found it really successful for people to celebrate failure. And that's something that we don't do enough. We really incentivize perfectionism, accuracy. And I think if you fail fast, fail cheap, there's something to be celebrated in that. And that applies to AI and really all technology exploration, right? Is you tried something, it didn't work, great. Now we know that doesn't work.
Here's an acronym: fail, first attempt in learning. That stays with me.
Thank you, everybody. I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. First attempt in learning. I love it. That is excellent. Thank you so much for that invigorating discussion. We are very grateful, Pascal, Christina, Stephanie, and Aaron. We are now going to call forward Jackie and Amna to do another demo for you. It's our second one of the day, virtual assistant with generative AI. I want to highlight, we're going to take a little 5-minute impromptu networking break directly following the demo. We're just going to reset something in our technology to ensure your experience is exceptional, particularly those online, as we come back. So with that, I'll hand it over to Jackie. Thank you, Sonia. Okay, so organizations, as we've heard, want to provide employees with agents that can help employees answer questions about policies and procedures. And in this regard, Watson X generative AI solutions have shown a lot of promise. Audrey, if we could start the demo. Yes. I have questions about policies and procedures for travel in my company. And I start with my virtual assistant that's provided to me in that bottom left corner. Since I'm logged in, it knows my name, it knows my local language, it knows my preferred language, and it will greet me. I don't know much about virtual agents, so I just type travel. But the virtual agent finds that vague and comes back and asks me for some more information in order to narrow the focus of the search and avoid hallucinations. I'll try again. I need to travel to France. Is there anything I need to do? So now my model is going and it's searching policies all over my corporation. It can look on premise, it can look on IBM Cloud, AWS, and so on. It comes back and it will in fact show me what are the documents that it used to come up with its answer. Its answer was that yes, as a manager, I need to fill out a business travel allowance request. And in fact, it's going to ask if it can help me do that. So Christiana likes that idea. And yeah, sure. So it's drawing from the very latest policies as well. And where am I traveling? Traveling to Paris. When do I arrive in Paris? Let's make this springtime in this fictional story. So, May 6th.
and staying in Paris until May 10th. And if the generative AI needs to, or this model needs to ask any questions that are private of Cristiano, corporate policy around privacy will be applied to remain compliant with security and protection of that data. So it comes back. It also knows that I'm going to need to upload a budget estimation and can help me with that. Let's say that that's done. We're going to click forward. And it will, to verify, provide me with a summary of what it has understood and if that's correct. So as we know from the previous, in fact, it'll come back and ask if I want some more help. As we know from the previous demo, behind the scenes, the technical staff in my company can watch as this IBM Watson-X solution, generative AI solution, is monitored continuously for its performance. So this approach is called retrieval augmented generation. And again, Amna is here to join me if you have a question.
Thank you, Jackie. So we are both from Toronto, and now you all know how we came here through this. So I would just like to summarize what you saw there was automation, where different processes were automated, and the process was seamless for us to book the flights. Productivity, I didn't have to, or Jackie didn't have to go through all of these policy documentation to book a flight, let's say, or book travel. And that will help Stephanie, who mentioned in the panel discussion, like that keeps her awake. Because it's productivity. I spent a lot of time doing the actual work rather than booking flights, which takes longer. So any questions around what Jackie showcased earlier?
Yes, it was really clear. Well, thank you. We won't delay the program. I think we have another panel. So.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
take your seats. Thank you to everyone who is online joining us and coming back together. We have an incredible closing panel for you. Thank you so much. Again, the value in the networking, the relationship development is so key, and it's one of the hallmarks here at Bayview Yards. All right, as everyone's taking their seat, I am so honored to introduce my dear friend, Anita Baines, Managing Partner, Canadian Federal Public Service at IBM, to the stage to moderate our third and final panel discussion today, Balance, Trust, Stability, and Financial Success Using AI to Transform Talent and Modernization, with panelists Kim Steele, Liz Herrera, Edith Cloutier, and Erin Kelly. Please join me in welcoming them to the stage.
Do I take this? Okay, I do. Okay, let me stand up here because I'm really short, but I have heels on today. I feel really tall. This is great. Thank you, everyone. So we want to talk about artificial intelligence related to talent and transformation, which is humans, women. What does it mean to us every single day? So I want to introduce my amazing panelists. Kim Steele, please. And I'll do formal introductions in a minute. Yeah, please, that'd be great. And Liz Herrera. And I think Erin Kelly, you're back. Thank you, Erin. And on our screen, we have Edith Cloutier. Thank you, Edith, for joining us as well. Sonia, thank you so much to you and your team. You're a great friend, and I appreciate you hosting us today. Makes a big difference. Let me sit down. Okay, so let's do the formal introductions. Edith, if you don't mind going first, I'd appreciate that.
Very happy to be here. Sorry to be on such a big screen. Probably we could use AI to shape it better. But very nice meeting you and joining you live. I'm Edith Cloutier. I'm the president of Rogers for the eastern part of Canada. So that's Quebec and the Atlantic. So very happy to be here.
Thank you so much, Edith. And Erin, everyone's met Erin, but I think, Erin, you also have a startup, and I wouldn't mind you just introducing yourself related to that.
Yeah, sure. Erin Kelly. I am the co-founder and CEO of Advanced Symbolics. We're the creators of Poly, the AI that can predict human behavior. And we're a startup company, raising money if anybody has any.
Exactly. That's really important. Thank you so much. And Liz, over to you, please.
Thank you. So I'm Liz Herrera, and I'm the Vice President of Advanced Analytics for Converge Technology Solutions. We are a Canadian-based IT service and solution provider. And I'm super excited to be in the room today with such an audience and distinguished speakers. It's amazing to see this many women in one spot talking about technology and advancing women from a talent perspective in the workplace. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, Liz. And Kim, over to you. You have to share the mic. Yeah, thank you.
Good morning, everyone. It's great to be here and to see so many people. So Kim Steele, I'm an Assistant Deputy Minister at Public Services and Procurement Canada, working primarily in HR and pay for the government. So we are definitely looking at how we can use technology to look at better hiring practices. How can we do pay better? I'm sure for those of you in Ottawa are very familiar with the challenges of pay in government. So really excited to be here and to be part of this community.
Thank you so much. So I think for the last panel, what we really wanted to just do is put a big umbrella around AI and take it from the angle of what does it mean as a human, right? We talked about the tech and the policy and the programs, and we talked about how it helps economic growth, sustainability, all of these things that we care about. But what does it mean as a human, as a woman? If you don't want to use AI, then take your phones and throw them away. That's essentially what we're talking about, right? If you don't want to use AI, then don't use Google Maps. I can't live without it. If you don't want to use AI, a lot of your cars use AI. You walk into your house, half the stuff in your home is AI related. You don't even realize how it's embedded in everything that you do. So today we wanted to talk about our fears and what we're excited about. So I'm actually going to start with the fears. So, Erin, if you don't mind going first, what are you afraid of around AI? Well, what are you scared of?
Well, I kind of mentioned it before. I'm afraid of actually people being left out. I think if we, it's left out of people who don't learn it, don't adopt it, I think that is the biggest risk, is in not learning it. I'll give you a concrete example. We designed our product to be very easy to use and all of that, and I was giving a presentation to a customer, not a technical person. The thing comes up and there's a bar graph, right? And she's like, I didn't know there were going to be graphs in this presentation. I was like, okay, well, don't worry. It's very easy to understand graph. It's bar. No, I've got to bring in my technical person. And I was like, I'm trying to talk her off. And, we do need to learn how to read bar graphs. I'm not saying you need a PhD in math, but you need to be able to do these simple things. And you do need to learn AI, no matter what field you are in. So I think that to me is the biggest fear.
Thank you. Liz, over to you.
Thanks. I think when we think about fear, I want to go back to some of the concepts that we heard about earlier this morning around the technology. AI has been around since the 1950s, right? This is not necessarily a new technology. I think within the last year, with the advent of ChatGPT, it's become democratized. So it is accessible to everybody. So I think that there's a lot of fear now because it is available, but we talked in the last panel about guardrails. There aren't necessarily guardrails around it. So I think people are scrambling, organizations and companies are trying to figure out, how do we build in process structure so that we use AI safely? And it's not just Gen AI, right? We talked about this a little bit, Erin, on our prep call. AI is a broad umbrella. There's so much technology out there. And I think I would echo what Christina said in the last panel, that it's a tool in our toolkit, right? It's technology that we can leverage for good. And it's an amazing good, Erin, like you've outlined so far. So I think the fear is out there, but we're trying to educate and to build in some guardrails so that we can do AI safely.
Thank you. Kim.
So being in the public sector, when we think about what scares us, maybe some slightly different things. So security, how do we ensure that what we put out in tools that use AI are making sure that whether we're testing code or information, that it's being treated securely, that our employees know how and what they should be putting. So just as an example, like Google Translates, I mean, that's AI, and we use it all the time. But what are we putting in there? We want to make sure that employees are aware of, if it's sensitive information, please don't use Google Translate or any of the other tools. Or, we've got a lot of old systems that use COBOL. And, when you're trying to troubleshoot, great, there's a system that can help troubleshoot code. But if it's for a sensitive system, maybe we shouldn't be putting that out in ChatGPT as an example. So those are some of the things that we think about. And then obviously things like biases. When we're talking about decision making. So how do we ensure that those biases are not there? We're humans, so we're not perfect either. And then that decision making piece, right? If we're using AI to help with decision making, do we have the right information? Do we have all of the information? So those are the things that I think about from a public sector perspective. And it requires a lot of education when we're talking, in a big organization and people use these tools all the time.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kim. Edith, over to you.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys remember when IBM's Deep Blue computer beat the chess champ Gary Kasparov. I remember saying to myself, oh my God, are we losing control over our own creation, right? Like the fear of the control. And also adding privacy and security. Very significant. You just talked about it. I think it's definitely, there's a lot of data out there. I think there's a big fear around it, and you said it as well. Ethical dilemmas. Yeah. What are the decision tree? What is it? There's a layer of fear there to make sure that that there's no bias algorithms or lack of transparency on potential bias. I think those are all fear out there.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Edith. So, what's happening as a society is that it's nudging into our lives. It's a kind of a term that I've been thinking about, both socially and economically, right? Which is what we care about. And now that it's right in front of us, and we have to use it as a tool to do business, the fear has heightened significantly. But remember, like I think you said 1950s, I don't know, probably is true. But it nudged into our society more socially first, and it became part of how we exist every single day. And so we know one of the things we talked about was productivity. One of our other panelists was talking productivity. And I think that's also an important factor. We are actually more productive daily because of AI, but sometimes you don't even realize it. So it's very interesting to me. Okay, let's build more energy around this, which is, what are you excited about? Like, got this, Gen AI, now they've got artificial generation, kind of concepts around AI. What are you guys excited about? Actually, I'll pass it to Edith first. Over to you.
Yeah, I think that's the fun part, right? I mean, we talked about the fears, but I think there's a world of possibility when it comes to AI. Like if I look at what we do at Rogers in terms of technology, just being able to use AI in our internal operation, being able to use AI to sort of maximize and optimize our network, and also solution and partnership that we can do and build on. Like, we can predict some storm coming, what it's going to do, the effect. So I think we just, that world of possibility is there. And we just have to, I don't know, someone said, let's make sure we're not left out of this. But I think it's the possibility there are to us, that really excites me. I mean, I think there's no limit. It's just the speed that we go at it.
Yeah, I think you're right. Thank you. Over to you, Erin.
Yeah, I'm most excited. I really liked some of the work we did during COVID. Our company, we were figuring out, so our task was, how do we get people vaccinated? Okay, so part of predicting the future, so there's predicting, and you might predict that lots of people aren't going to get vaccinated, and who are those people? Once you know who those folks are and you can understand their hesitancy, how do you overcome those hesitancies? And that's called prescriptive. It's not predictive, it's prescriptive. So how do you communicate to those hard to reach populations? We did a lot of work on conspiracy thinking. We did a lot of work on what were those hesitancies, and we, I think, did a great job in overcoming them. I'm not going to go into what we uncovered. We did uncover some cool things. They were implemented, and you saw Canada had very high vaccination rates. And our work on conspiracy theory is now under peer review because of the really pioneering work that we've done. So to me, that's the exciting part is, I mentioned earlier, we're becoming very polarized as a society. Why is that? How can we use AI to figure out what is causing those divisions, and can it help us overcome them and be a more functioning society?
Yeah, I like that. Liz?
Sure. So I think you've already touched on some of the exciting things that are coming with AI. One is being able to tackle really hard problems that we haven't been able to tackle before and do it in a quick fashion, right? We can fail fast and learn. So I think that's really exciting. When I talk to clients, companies and organizations every day, the business problems and use cases that we're discussing are way out there. And these are things that we would never have talked about. The traditional use cases around operational efficiency, risk mitigation, increase revenue, decrease cost. And those are still problems that we're going to face, and AI will help us with those. But the problems that we can tackle now are much broader. So that's kind of the high level, super exciting stuff. But then getting back to operational efficiency, productivity is a huge play for AI right now. We talked earlier about co-pilots. I think we're going to see more and more of the technology embedded in applications that help us with our everyday life, and not just at work, but at home too. So I think it's interesting just from a personal standpoint, but also the professional and organizational opportunities are pretty boundless.
Thank you. Kim, over to you.
So I think about, in the early 2000s, 1990s, we talked about the exponential increase of information. So we can just see that it's not a curve, it's like a line that's going straight up. So we have information overload today. There is so much information out there. How can you synthesize, analyze, and actually get to that good decision based on all of the information and having the right information? And I think that's where AI is really going to help us. Like, I know we've had some fun, putting some things into ChatGPT, and it's amazing. It's like a policy paper that can pop out. And is it 100% accurate? No. Is it 80%? not bad. So I just think of the ability to, we talk about efficiencies, but it's an acceleration of analysis and synthesis of data, because that volume of data is only going to continue to grow. So how do we, get to that, again, government informed decision making, which is so critical, but you need to have the ability to analyze all of that information.
Yeah, we do. And I don't know what these stats are, how much information as a society we gather on a daily basis, but I'm sure it's very significant. I should have looked that up, but I didn't. So let's talk about women in AI, right? So many of you are here physically, many of you are on our screen, on our social media. Sonia said earlier the importance of continuing to focus on women in STEM. I'm passionate about that as well. That's why, I often am talking about this, online and personally. I'm a woman in STEM. I'm an older woman in STEM. I love the fact there's a lot of young women here in the room. And I think that each one of you need to play a role because it is still new as a society. It is still something that we have fears around and we're also very excited about. So why not play a leadership role around AI? So one of the questions that I had from my panelists is, what do you think is required? What does it take to build your skills and your leadership acumen around AI? Whether it's your own personal opinion or something that you're doing within your organization. Over to you, Aaron.
How to build your skill set? I think the best way is to get involved in a project. I mean, you can read and you can, try to become informed, which is great. Do that too. I think there's no substitute for just diving in and doing it. And it doesn't have to be big, expensive, you start with a $50 million project and you can start really, really small and get a small bite-sized project, learn and grow. We kind of mentioned that in the last panel. I think that is, and like I said, don't start with a house on fire problem because that's not going to go well. Okay, so start when you're not panicked and you really just want to learn something. I think that's the best way to do it.
Thank you. Liz?
Yeah, so definitely hands-on, and I'm a data scientist. I've been doing the work for 20 years, so getting my hands on the data is always super exciting. And we always talk to clients about starting small, and you talked about this in the last panel, right? Choose one problem, let's start small, do an MVP, let's test it out, and then learn from there. And we coach our team to do that too. We've got brilliant young women on our team who are technologists who are learning, and we're trying to partner them with senior folks. So having mentoring and mentorship, folks like ourselves who are in leadership positions as well, being able to promote other women in the organization. And the other piece, and you've touched on it with the STEM component, is building pipelines from university into organizations like the ones that we run, so that we can bring up women to learn and to grow across the organization. So I think that's a really key piece, the leadership and mentorship.
Yeah, I think that's important. And that means that as women who have leadership roles, as you mentioned, we got to create the space for it, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Kim.
bring them to the table.
So I agree with all of that. So ditto, absolutely. I do think that being aware of what's happening in society is also another critical element. So I was mentioning this to Anita before. There's a UNESCO article called "I'd Blush If I Could: Closing Gender Divides in Digital Skills Through Education." It's a great article. The title, which is kind of cool if you know about it. So back in the day, it doesn't exist anymore. Siri, it borrows the title from a phrase that Siri would say if somebody said to Siri, "Hey Siri, you're a bitch." And so the response was, "I'd blush if I could." Interesting, huh? So again, it doesn't happen anymore, but that's the title of the article and the research that they've done. And there's a lot of interesting statistics, where women and girls are 25% less likely than men to know how to leverage digital technology. When I told my 17-year-old daughter I was coming here to talk about AI, she looked at me and she said, "You?" Even though she knows I've been a CIO and I've been in technology for my entire career. So it just goes to show awareness, reading, being aware of perceptions, all of that is just as important as the practical hands-on and encouragement.
I think that's a great article. right? So it's worth reading. It kind of gets you going if you're new in the space. Edith, over to you.
You said something in your question. I think we all have a role to play in this, right? As leader and as women in business, I think we have to help creating that momentum. I love the fact that you said creating space and being aware, right? I mean, like reading about it, but I think it also started at a young age, right? I mean, let's support STEM education. Let's talk about it at a young age so the young girls can be interested in it. And I think we have to promote that gender diversity in any career and remove ambiguity around AI. And it's fun and it's something exciting about the future. And I think by doing all that, it'll make a difference in the long run. But we still have work to do.
Yeah, we have a lot of work to do. That's why we're here. Thank you. So I have to now, of course, ask, how about the future of work, right? I mean, this is talent transformation. So super curious. I'm going to actually pass it back to you, Edith, if you don't mind. But what do you think the future of work is with AI in our pockets?
One thing is for sure, we know it's going to have major impact. And I also remain cautious about saying that it will solve for the world's problem, like the labor shortage and all of that. But I think what it's going to do is just simply, if you look at it, simplify some repetitive task, and that can make it easy to be like putting the human being on a different task and help being more efficient. But also, someone said earlier, solving the bigger problem. I think that's what's going to be exciting about what's coming and what AI will do in the workspace.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Over to you, Erin.
I think there's definitely roles that are going to go away, new roles that are going to be created. I did a presentation on this for accountants not too long ago. I mean, look, and when I did that, I looked at all the sort of new roles that could be created, right? And a lot of it is, I mentioned earlier, getting the bias out of your data. You need to have somebody who's really like a data officer, who's looking at the quality of the data, the source of the data. How do you get it in? We talked about having reams and reams of data, but reams of data is not what you need. Quality data is what you need. Leading indicators is what you need. So you need good data, not just lots of it. In fact, lots of it's probably bad. Okay, so because then you miss the good stuff. And so I think there's going to be a whole bunch of other tasks, because as I mentioned when the question was asked earlier, start with projects that we're not doing today. Like we talked about that there's projects that we're not doing now that we're going to be doing. For example, the suicide reduction or the drug recalls, or all of those things are things that we didn't do before and now we can do. And so that's a whole other opportunity. And in healthcare, it's not just having healthcare shortages and stuff, but timeliness in getting your cancer diagnosis is really important. So if AI can help get your diagnosis faster, we save lives. So so I think it's going to change, and that's going to create new opportunities.
Yeah, I think the concept of new roles, I think we've already noticed it, right? If you're a data scientist, it's a great job to have right now, just saying. Because these are all the adjacent positions as well, not just like the core title of AI, it's everything else that's wrapped around it. Over to you, Liz.
Yeah, and I think that that's one of the important things that we're going to see with the future of work are new roles, right? So prompt engineer, roles that are actually very creative, which is very interesting to me. It's not just going to be about coding bits and bytes. It's going to be creativity in terms of thinking about the problems and how to solve them. One thing that comes to mind for me is actually from the former CEO of IBM, Ginny Rometty. She used to talk about AI as augmented intelligence. And I think that's really important for us to think about, that we're going to be leveraging AI as our co-pilot, as an assistant to augment the things that we do, hopefully. And I know we are going to probably see changes in terms of roles, and there might be some reductions in certain roles, but it will open up opportunities for new roles, new positions, and be an assistant for us.
Yeah, thank you. Kim?
I think that, to me, is the perfect example of what the future holds. It is that co-pilot, that assistant that we're going to have, somebody that can take care of, that repetitive day in and day out, transactional work that nobody really wants to do. We'll be able to put our human resources onto things that are more exciting, more important, more value add. I think that's really going to be how work changes. So the roles are going to change. What the skill sets that we're going to need are going to change. So how do we develop that in young women to start thinking about it's not going to be the clerical work anymore. The tools will do it for us. We need you to be the ones thinking about the decisions, the future, the problem solving.
No, I love that. And I think one of our other panelists talked about that, I think it was maybe Stephanie, which is let's use our brains a bit more. Be kind of nice thing to do, right? And so the future of work really is the future of how we use our minds more and expand our thinking and be more strategists. A lot of my colleagues know I love strategy. It's a big part of my day-to-day thoughts. But it's, less about sort of the hands on keyboard. We still have to do it, but more about, or, depending what kind of role you have. And but it's more about thinking, being more strategic as well. Okay, I have time for one more, I think. Then we'll do some Q&A. So again, around talent, like I said, we use AI every day. I think we all kind of realize that, just more deliberately. But what is like a real use case that you are either thinking about starting within your business or organization, or you're actually doing today? I'd love to hear that. Edith, you first, please.
You're going to start with me? Okay, good. I briefly said that we at Rogers have a lot of partners and, working with the technology. But one that comes to mind that we're particularly proud of is we did a sort of a smart campus, the first one in North America with the University of British Columbia. And so with the technology we've implemented, and it's AI, and I mean, with partners, is to improve the flow of traffic with the pedestrian as well. So, and it was really something that we've done on a sort of a test base. And what we realized just by, like real time, like flow of traffic, what we do is we've reduced like 74 tons of CO2 emission was calculated just on the campus. So imagine if we could, predict that over the city, like city of Vancouver or the entire planet. This is just an example of what can be done with AI and with technology. It's not only great for customer or for, but for the planet itself, right? So you can be looking at big problems and finding solution. This one we're particularly proud of.
That's really cool. Thank you. Thank you so much. Aaron?
We're about to embark on a big project to look at the effects of climate change on mental health. And again, that's a space that I'm really interested in, the mental health space. So I'm looking forward to seeing if there are any impacts on that.
So I'm just going to say I kind of like our climate in Ottawa right now. Okay. My mental health is really good. Liz, over to you.
So I'd like to respond to this through two lenses, if that's okay, internal and external. So in our organization, our team has built out effectively applying large language models, including Lots and X, to our internal knowledge base. And that's for people operations as well as our IT system, to learn from our data and be able to respond to questions that our employees have so that they can do self-service. And that frees up our IT organization, as well as our people operations organization, to do more value-added work and deeper work. So that's been very exciting internally, and I don't see Shannon in the room. I might need to connect with her later because she talked about the IT ticketing, so I would love to chat about what we've learned internally. And we have repped in our CISO as well, so our executives, as well as our Chief Information Security Officer, so we have the guardrails in place that we're implementing in a secure way. But we're bringing that also to our clients. So we're going to talk to them about what we've learned. So lessons learned, best practices, how to do something in a secure fashion. So it's something that we're actually bringing to market as well.
Wow, that's cool. Yeah. Thank you. Kim.
So we've used, I'm going to say, the spectrum of AI for a lot of processing. So starting a few years ago with robotic process automation, which is kind of like one spectrum, to actually remove some of the manual work that we were having employees do. Some stuff that you were clicking job after job after job to process something over the course of 24 hours. And you can imagine in the middle of the night how mistakes happen. So that's one aspect. The other, again, is helping some of our compensation advisors in terms of they go out, they gather a bunch of information, then which can take them quite a bit of time. So looking at using how we can use AI to scrape the information, bring it together so that they can spend their time focused on the decisions and not the gathering of information.
Wow. Thank you so much. Is it time for Q&A? Yeah? Okay. And how do I do that again? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. That was really interesting. I love what Anita said, that the future of work is about how we use our brain. And I just wanted to ask all of you about what would be some of the suggestions you would make for organizations to help. It's one thing to train, but to reframe the way their employees and their clients are working to, as you said, the future of work is changing the way we use our brain.
Does anyone want to go first? Edith, did you hear the question?
It wasn't very clear, so maybe you want to start with somebody else.
Okay, I will. Anyone? Kim, do you want to?
Sure,
Yeah.
I'll start.
Thank you.
So education, I do think, is important, right? Because we've talked a little bit about guardrails. So I think there is something to be said about making sure that employees know what tools are available and I'm going to say the rules or the things that they need to be thinking about in using them. But it's also starting by making the tools available, right? If they don't have the tools, if they don't know how to use them, it becomes very hard to kind of change how you do work. And that's a culture thing, and that takes time. So it's finding the 2 or 3 people in the organization who love the tools, they love working with it, and you make them your champions. And then finding those projects and getting more and more people involved. Because it's going to be a culture change. You're going to have people that love it, and then you're going to have your resistors. So like anything else, it is about culture.
Yeah, I think it makes a big difference. Sorry, I know you're about to go. But one of the other panelists, I think it was Ivy from TELUS, said that they use ChatGPT and they actually promote the use of it, right? Instead of like, no, you can't do it. I mean, I got 3 kids and none of my kids are allowed to use it at school, as if they don't. But like, they actually promoted it and they have actually said, here are the guidelines. So I think that is, again, ways to create space.
I think it's creating space. If I can add, sorry
Yes,
that I
please.
didn't hear in the
Yeah.
first place, but I think you talked about culture, about promoting, but also using agent change in the organization, right? Promoting is one thing, and making sure that people know what's out there and that we use it, and it's part of the daily routine, welcoming it, right? That creating that space, as you say.
Yes, absolutely. Totally agree. Liz,
Yeah,
over
sure.
to you.
So I'm thinking from kind of an industrial organizational psychology standpoint, change management, which is effectively kind of what you were talking about, right? We know how people react to change. There's a curve that they follow, right? So I think we can actually use some of that traditional methodology just applied with the new technology. Meet people where they are, find the promoters, find the detractors, try to pull those folks along, right? And over communicate. That's something I've learned over many years, that when you're looking to implement something new and looking to change or reframe, over communicate and make sure you have buy-in from the top. Because if you don't and they're not communicating, folks underneath are never going to come along.
Yeah, for sure. Aaron.
And I think just one thing to add, I think what you incentivize, you realize, right? So incent the adoption, recognize the people who are getting things done in 10% of the time because they're leveraging their tools and they're coming up with superior results. Incentivize them, give them bonuses. I mean, they're doing the work of 10 people, right? So I think we need to do that, incentivize people who adopt.
Yeah, I don't think we've talked much about that, but that's a really good one for sure. More questions?
Hi, sorry. So I wanted to push back against the point you made that the automation is disrupting more of the repetitive tasks. I think it's disrupting more of the knowledge-based tasks. And I think data scientists and software engineers are kind of almost automatable these days, and most of the machine learning pipelines have mostly become like Lego blocks and API calls. So I was just wondering as to your comments on, like, as to what you thought would, like, if you were advising somebody in high school today, what would you advise them to pursue in terms of a good career?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead,
Please.
please.
Yeah, because I have 2 kids going to university. One, my daughter's in engineering. Yay.
There you go. I love that.
So that's a great question. And you're right. I don't think we can simplify it and say, oh, these jobs are going to stay and these jobs are going to go. I think you really need to think about it step by step. So for example, my daughter's in bioengineering. And I don't think AI, I mean, maybe AI someday is going to replace everybody, but I don't think the bioengineers are going first. Why? Because she really needs to do design of experiment. She wants to work in figuring out how to grow food in the desert kind of thing, right? For climate change, vertical farming. She's really interested in that. And you do need a person, even if you have robots and AI and the robots are picking the food, you do need to study, test, make sure the nutrients are good. Like you are going to need a person there. Now, maybe eventually AI will do all of that, but I think they're lower down than, for example, a coder when you just code. Now, my son wanted to go in and study computer science. He wants to combine that with finance because he wants to create algorithms for doing better financial models. I think that's it could be a good space because you're designing things. But yes, you could probably get an AI to do that. The other thing he's thinking of is firefighter, because he's a boy, like police officer. So yeah, and I think we're far off from RoboCop, right? Like even if we could have RoboCop, you can imagine the problems.
Just imagining Arnold Schwarzenegger being in that role.
Well, we imagine him for different reasons, but yeah. So I think we're going to want a person doing that. Now, you might have police who use drones to help them and reduce casualties and things like that. You're still going to want human police officers for a lot of those difficult situations where you're talking people down from their problems, right? We don't want a robot doing that. And that's a big part of what policing will be in the future, or whoever's going to do that role. So I do think you have to look at it all individually and say, well, how would an AI or a robot do that? And if there's a human psychology element, or there's a design of experiment, or just a responsibility. Like my favorite one, sorry if I'm taking so, usually I try not to take up so much time, but my favorite one is when people say we're just going to have trucks driving all over the place because AI is going to drive the trucks. Well, you know what? We've had autopilot for a long time. We don't send planes up in the air without pilots. Why? Because there will be an error rate at least 5% of the time. And you don't want to be the airline that said we saved money on pilots when the plane went down. So we are still going to have, I think if you're smart about it, you still want a truck driver in there because your liability is going to be through the roof when the truck goes off the road and kills a baby. Okay, so so there's lots of things to think about. But you're right. Like I think software developer, certainly some of those functions will be done by AI, or a good chunk of it.
Yeah, good point. Anyone else want to answer? Okay.
That was a pretty comprehensive answer.
It was comprehensive for sure. Yes.
Hello, my name is Karen Mendoza. I'm actually a graphic designer for a creative agency nearby called Character Creative. And I think you can all imagine that in our industry, there's a huge panic when it comes to AI and the implications for designers or creatives in general, right? Especially when you're talking even copywriters down to creative graphic designers. So I'm curious, it was mentioned earlier today that, there was one instance where one train inspector was, or the job of 150 train inspectors was replaced by one AI 360 camera, right? So there's a lot of fear in the creative agency, in the creative community for that. So I'm wondering if you think there's a future where we are incorporating a process where instead of eliminating skills, we're perhaps transferring them. So how are you reassuring the workforce that if there is an AI model being introduced into a process or an organization, that their jobs are not necessarily on the line because you're talking about incentive and buy-in? How are you ensuring that that workforce is perhaps being transferred and applying skills in a different aspect so that they're reassured that they're not being replaced by that AI model?
Very good question. Anyone want to take that?
Well,
Kim?
maybe I can start.
Sure. Yeah.
So work changes and has changed over the course of history, right? So, the jobs that existed 100 years ago are not the same jobs that exist today, will not be the same jobs that exist tomorrow. So I think there is always going to be an evolution of work and jobs and roles. And that's change, and that's going to bring fear, uncertainty, which again makes everybody a little bit nervous. So your example is very unique, and I can definitely understand, I'm going to say, the fear or the nervousness around that, because there is a creative ownership. So whether it's art, whether it's literature, again, when somebody creates that, it's theirs, and you should have the recognition for that. So that's something that I don't think that problem has been solved by anyone yet. And it's going to be something that as a collective, I think society, we're going to have to work through that. But in other situations, again, it's about, how do we integrate those tools and those skill sets into our work, thinking about what those future jobs will look like, and thinking about AI as that co-pilot. So instead of being afraid of it, going, how do I use this to advance my job, to advance my role going forward? It's very easy to say, but it is a change that I think we're going to have to look at. So as I think back to when my oldest entered junior high, and the principal was like, no, phones are okay in the classroom. And all the parents are like, what do you mean? And they're like, it's a tool just like the calculator that you had in high school. I'm like, right. So the goal is, how do we teach people how to use these tools in the right way?
As a Rogers representative, I like to say that the phones are okay in the school. I'm just going to say the way I like to look at it in terms of reassuring. I see it more as a compliment. Someone else was saying on the panel earlier, it's augmented intelligence. How can they complement each other? That's the way I would see it. And as you say, it's going to evolve through times, but it's also going to be very complementary. So I think it will change, but it's like technology, right? When we introduced technology, we thought it would solve everything, but we still need the human aspect to it, and I think we complement each other.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so to me, I think there's a great opportunity here, because everybody's going to have the same garbage creative that comes out of a robot. And if you're really a creative agency, you'll find a way for your customers to stand out so they don't look like everybody else is creative. So how are you implementing? And that's really the strategy part, right? It's not, do they have golden retrievers? They don't have golden retrievers and they're creative. It's, what are the golden retrievers doing? How is their brand brought into that creative? And most importantly, what is going to make them stand out? That's what creative is all about. How do I stand out from the crowd? And when everybody's got a Soros video or a Mid-Journey photo, how's your agency? And that's what your challenge is. How are you going to, all their competitors are going to have Mid-Journey, and your customers are going to have what? That's going to make them different. And I think that's a great opportunity, because right now everybody has their own agency and they're all human and they're all being different. In a day when everybody's using robots, the person that can stand above that and find out what the robot can't do, that agency is going to have a huge opportunity, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. So I think, especially with creative and copyright, we're going to have to see what the future holds. There's litigation currently, right? So there might be some precedent from a legal standpoint about what can and can't be done. But beyond that, I think internally, I would look for allies, folks who you can talk to and plan or build out a steering committee to talk about what is the future of our roles and the work that we do, and have it be collaborative and be proactive going after that. Go to the table and have that conversation and find the people who will bring you to the table. I think that's incredibly important. It's not just the technology. They have to see you as the human and as a contributor to their business.
Like, I'll give you one example just briefly. I got an email from someone just the other day saying, I forget what it is, we're doing business with them or whatever. She's like, I want to send you brownies. What's your address? I'll never forget this woman. She sent brownies, you know what I mean? Like, it's how do you help your customers stand out for the same kind of price? And what can you do that's different?
Totally agree. Any more questions?
Hello, hi, thank you. You have touched about how AI is going to transform career paths, and you have also mentioned a pair of skills such as the designing component, problem solving, all of those skills that we are going to have to use now in this new world. I was wondering for women, specifically for young professionals, what are some others that you would recommend to polish or to acquire in order to succeed?
Ooh, I can jump in on that real quick. Soft skills, and you've talked about some of them. I think, irrespective of industry or where you're at, building your soft skills so you are a good communicator, which is hard for women, right? A lot of times we'll sit back, especially depending if you're, think about future of work and hybrid models, right? Especially if you're fully remote, it can really disadvantage women. So being intentional, thinking about how you're communicating and presenting, listening is incredibly important too. So I think that's one thing I would focus on. It's not just the technology pieces and the tech skills are super important, but I think back to rounding out humanities and soft skills as well.
I think that's a really good point, Kim. I'll give it in a second, because I think we have been talking all about tech talk, and now we're talking about future of work. Well, AI is actually supposed to improve our lives, right? But it's our lives. So, you know, it is about how we want to augment ourselves. Kim, please.
So I'm going to build on the soft skill piece because, you know, when you work in technology, we have to be able to explain the technology to the business and ensure that the business is able to and interpret what the business is saying to us. And it's not a skill that everybody has. So being able to be that interpreter, to understand, those soft skills are absolutely critical. So I always joke, I've been trying to get out of IT and move more into the business for years, and I can't, because I'm really good. I found a niche to be able to do that interpretation back and forth. And it's not a skill set that everybody has. So that plus the soft skills, plus the leadership skills. And I say this to lots of young employees, like leadership can happen at any level, right? It's not just about being a manager or a project lead. You know, you can be a leader at every single role. And so building those skills is really important.
Now, I would say a saying I like is don't attach yourself to a person, a job, a tech, whatever. Attach yourself to a cause. Be that cause, and then that's your brand. So find a cause, something you're passionate about, lofty, not like Python programming, right? Because that may come or go. Something that you believe in that's evergreen, that's eternal, that will always be something important for you. And then be that, like that's your brand, and people know that that's what she's about. And I think that's going to be really, really important as something that helps us to stand out and have our brand and have our North Star, if you will.
Thank you so much.
Edith, did you have anything?
Not much. I was listening to all that. This is about it. Like your brand, your communication, be out there, be curious, and stand for something. I think that's what I would say.
Yeah, definitely. Is there anything online? Any questions there before I close? No? Okay, I'm going to take 60 seconds to close. Can I do that? Okay, so my last comment, and I have to say this is about education. So men and women alike, when it comes to AI, I have 3 kids. My eldest is 23. Yes, I know. Isn't that amazing? My gray hairs are well colored. And he wants to do his master's in AI. I'm shocked. Like it's still a very rare thing to do. And what really bothered me was there was only 3 universities. So all the education leaders in the room and whoever are online, there's only 3 universities in all of Canada that have a master's in AI. 3. Insane. Or even when I talk about colleges and post-secondary, 3. U of T, write it down, Waterloo, and the University of Alberta. Pathetic. So, we talk about the challenges that we have in Canada about being innovators and growing our economy and really pushing on, the importance of building skilled workers, when my son is got 3 chances to be in Canada. Otherwise, he's not going to be here. So I just want to close off by saying these are the problems that we have to solve. We keep talking about it, but like he may become an American. thanks to this problem that we have. Am I happy? No, but it's okay, right? I'll have to get them back somehow. So thank you everyone for your time today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much to Anita and our incredible panelists. What a thought-provoking discussion, all of the intricate human elements alongside that powerful technology discussion. That was a masterclass. I'm very grateful to you all. We're going to take a 5-minute break as we queue up our final keynote speaker. You will not want to miss her. Please enjoy a few of the remaining snacks, and we will be right back in 5 minutes.
We're ready to go? Okay. Let me get the script.
She's dropping. Oh. Keynote. Thank you so much. I know, incredible networking. I love the buzz. We'll get everyone to take their seats. It is my honor to welcome virtually Teresa D'Andrea, Assistant Deputy Minister and Chief Data Officer, Human Capital Management Team, Public Services and Procurement Canada with the Government of Canada. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us, Teresa. Perfect. Okay, we're having some technical difficulties, unfortunately, with this final virtual presentation. So I think we are going to just invite you all to enjoy continued networking, continued snacks, coffee. Lunch will be coming very, very soon. And of course, I would love your feedback in terms of that survey. We will put that QR code back up. Enjoy, and hopefully we will manage to bring Teresa back. I think there might be a challenge with her internet connectivity. So please enjoy networking, enjoy the snacks that we have available, and we will be back as soon as possible. Thanks, everyone.